What if Renesmee was taken by Nahuel? Let's get started. Renesmee. The haze clouded my reality. Unsure, yet strangely aware. The bright, twirling colors. Brilliant flashes of light. A strange creaking noise. I reached through the dream's stupor, waking up to greet the morning. My eyes blurry, I gazed around the room in confusion. Darkness. Why was I awake when it was so dark? I blinked rapidly and swiped at my eyes. Movement in a corner caught my attention. I drew in a ragged breath. Jacob, I whispered tentatively. Jacob, is that you? The shape remained quiet as if unsure. Suddenly, it lunged. Bella, Bella, the voice gasped. Edward, what is it? I asked, confused. I turned from the scent of the deer herd in the shadows, safe for now. Run home. It's Renesmee. I can hear her screaming in my head. He turned and fled, his shape now merely a memory. I followed him. Fleet as a deer, he arrived at the cottage without disturbing the forest floor. Edward, you're scaring me, I said as he investigated the area under our daughter's window. It was then that I froze. I smelled him. I know that scent, I said slowly. My brain clicked. Nahuel, Edward breathed. Renesmee, I yelled. I heard the deer herd move with the sound of my amplified voice. Renesmee. Edward was already on his silver cell. Calling reinforcements. I jumped through the open window into Renesmee's room. On the bed, a note lay waiting. Obviously meant for us. With shaking hands, I opened the letter. Mom and Dad, I have been told to write you this note. I will be leaving with someone you know. His name is Nahuel. He told me to write and say I am safe. I will remain safe as long as I am with him. He has told me that I will be comfortable and well cared for as long as I remain with him. Please remember how much I love you. Renesmee. I heard Edward land on the sill behind me. She's gone. Nahuel kidnapped her. He landed on the wooden floor, then stilled. He furrowed his brows in concentration. I wondered if he could still hear the man's thoughts in the distance. Oh, Edward, I moaned. What are we going to do? I pulled the folded note close to my chest, surrounding the hasty script of my daughter. The tear-stained letter betrayed Renesmee's terror. My chest heaved, heavy somehow. Teeth grinding, his chin tight, Edward enveloped my torso with the embrace of a man determined to save his family. We'll find them, he choked. What do we do first? I begged, looking into his deep black eyes. Call in the dogs, he said gruffly. Jacob will be. He cut off suddenly, shaking his head. I know, I sighed. He'll be inconsolable, then he'll be on the move. We have to get to them before he does. I don't know what he'll do to Nahuel when he finds out he's kidnapped Renesmee. We know he won't hurt her, but still, I, too, couldn't finish. We'll get them back if it's the last thing I do. Edward growled. Somehow, I believed him. At the same time, I felt the sobs coming. My daughter. Gone. Renesmee. My head felt all wrong. There was something about this man that should have been clear to me all along. I felt the earth shift and tumble. Jacob, I asked, hopeful. The words slurred on my tongue. No, the man said in a low voice. It's not Jacob. Jacob isn't the man for you. The dizzy feeling I felt wasn't due to sleep. I fought desperately for air, for sanity. You did something to me, I accused. The words echoed in my head. Nothing lasting, he grunted. You are fine, my dearest. You will be fine as long as you are with me. That rang a bell. The letter. With me. The man had specifically pushed those words in the note. I remembered writing it now. Do you think they'll just let you take me? I asked. They'll follow you to the ends of the earth. Jacob. The man hissed in reply. They'll have no choice. He calmed his voice, relaxed the cadence of his words. Don't worry, my love. You'll grow used to the idea. In time. Bella. I paced the length of the windowed wall, hoping for a miracle. Jasper had picked up the scent in little more than 10 minutes. His assurance meant little in the face of this danger. Certainly he'd kept us safe before, but my daughter was once again at stake. Esme's soft cries tore at my heart. She was trying so hard not to let her own pain hurt me further. Alice stood sentry over the room, her small face a pained mask. Rosalie looked ready to fight to the death, a grim, mute warrior. The men were all ready to take charge of the situation. I was happy to let them. Emmett slowly pulverized the pencil he held. Each rotation of his fingernail created a satisfying curl of wood shavings. His concentration momentarily captivated me. Bella. Edward's voice rang through my daze. Sorry. Carlyle thinks we should send Jasper on foot to follow the tracks. He and Alice can go on foot and we can fly ahead to meet them in the rainforest. Edward studied my face. I kept my expression blank. Certainly, if that's what he thinks is best, we should follow his advice. What do you think? His sharp gaze tried to capture me within them. Instead, I turned my back to him. I think any decision followed by immediate action is the best decision right now. I don't know how much more waiting I can take. Perhaps it had only been an hour since they'd left. I had no idea what kind of arrangement Nahuel had to transport my daughter. Was his aunt helping him? His deranged father? I shook my head, thinking how appropriate it would have been for the Volturi to kill in that situation. Instead, he'd gotten off with a reprimand. The same Volturi who had nearly extinguished my family for the want of Alice. Somehow I'd kept them away all these years. They hadn't come back, afraid of my power. I snorted in disgust. What good was a shield when it couldn't protect a sleeping girl? I shook my head to clear the thought. Not girl, woman. My little girl had turned into a woman in 7 short years. It's settled. Edward turned back to his father and tilted his chin up. Let's pack. His head whipped around to the south and his shoulders sagged. Well, we're decided, but I think we'd better let our guests have a say in this. Suddenly a howl, loud and agonized, broke the still night air. Renesmee, are you thirsty? His voice entered my reverie. I'd been thinking about Alice and Jasper. Jasper knew things, had experience beyond comprehension. His tracking skills were honed from years of practice. Even if Mom and Dad had trouble finding me, Jasper would track us. Not only that, Alice would be able to find us. Certainly a blind spot would creep through her vision, alerting her to our whereabouts. I thought about the man carrying me, knew by his scent he wasn't full vampire. Also that he wasn't full human. His question of my thirst surprised me. Why did he care? No, I am not thirsty. Even I knew that my clipped tone sounded prissy. I am your protector now. His voice caressed my ear. Strange that I'd never noticed such a note of finality when he'd spoken before. This man truly believed what he said. I don't know why you believe that, but it isn't true. The people I love won't let you take me. They'll find you and kill you. I wasn't generally prone to smirking, but I must say that a smirk was appropriate. They may find us, but they won't kill me. His tone sounded so sure. And why is that? Because my death will lead to yours. Bella. Jake. Please relax, I begged. His constant shaking worried me. We've got to go now. If you won't, I will. Jacob ran his hand over his face, his features constantly blurring. We have a patrol running the perimeter. I told them not to interfere, but there's only so long I can wait. He closed his eyes, controlling his emotions. This can't happen. Not now. His pain was so raw I had to look away. Jasper's on the trail now. When he finds where it leads, he'll let us know what we're facing. I turned to my husband. Edward. Love, please, is Jasper anywhere nearby? Edward walked to the piano and sat. He'd been so still since returning from the cottage. I can hear him. He was distant a few minutes ago, but he's getting clearer. The trail is straight through the trees, due south. He doesn't understand Nahuel. It's almost like he left himself open to be followed. Then let's go get her back, Jacob growled. Leah and I can. No, Edward sighed softly. There's more to it than that. What? Jacob intoned. Is she hurt? He paced across the floor, rage pouring from his body in waves. If she's hurt, I'm gonna rip that leech's favorite appendage off him. There's no need for talk like that, Jacob, Esme reprimanded, trying to compose herself. Jasper's the best. She turned to Edward. Is Renesmee hurt? Jasper's here. Alice jumped lightly to her feet. I'm going to get what we need for the journey. She sighed, turning for the stairs. More khaki and t-shirts. It's like Jasper's begging for a makeover and shopping trip. Her eyes gleamed. On the way back, you'll have my daughter, I said pointedly. Right. She ran up the stairs. Crazy pixie, I said, smiling slightly. Carlyle opened the door for Jasper. He entered, lithe and in control. Alice and I will leave as soon as possible, he said, clipping the words. It's important that we don't bring too many people along. We don't want to scare him into a confrontation. He's running full out, but isn't hiding his trail. Rosalie stood, chin high. You aren't going to keep me away, and Emmett will fight to the death to keep Renesmee safe. You're going to have to stay here. Jasper ignored Rosalie's angry hiss. Bella and Edward can meet us when we find out where he's going. What do you need us to do? Carlyle asked, walking to Jasper. Should we plan to stay here? I'm not sure yet. You tell me, Jasper said, gritting his teeth. We may need your expertise. He slowly opened his hand to reveal a syringe. Renesmee, because my death will lead to yours, I mocked. What's that supposed to mean? I am your protector, he insisted. Without me, much harm will come to you. We will exist together or not at all. I pondered his statement, a conundrum. What exactly did you do to me? I asked, starting to feel a little unnerved. He'd promised to keep me safe, but still, I remembered Jasper telling me stories of the South. Places he told me were likely to lead to my demise. I began to shake. Perhaps it's time for another rest. Nahuel slowed his pace and began to pull me from over his shoulder. What are you doing, and where are we going? My voice trembled. I hadn't really been scared up to this point. I had great faith in my family. I just couldn't help but feel my body's reaction to the situation at hand. We're going home. He turned me around in his arms, and my breath caught in my chest. His beautiful face held stunning ruby eyes. The dancing, shining orbs darted across my face, drinking in my features. For the first time, I had nothing to say. I hope this spot is to your liking, he continued, never taking his eyes from my face. Please feel comfortable enough to sit. He reached into a woven bag at his side. We'll be on our way again soon. Only then did I see the glint of silver in his hand. It was gone quickly, but not before I guessed what it was. His features displayed no regret, no worry, only resignation. I turned from him and plunged into the thick forest. Bella, everyone gasped. I felt the room spin. Not once, since I'd become a vampire, had I ever fainted. Somehow I remained conscious, but I felt a whisper of air near me as Edward came to stand by my side. Listen to me, Bella, he growled. We will get her back, and she will be safe. Most likely he's drugging her with something that will cause her to be easy to move. It does make sense when you think about it. I don't like it any more than you do. Please know we'll find her if it's the last thing I do. I regained my focus and saw Carlyle studying the syringe. It's steel, and seems to be full of some liquid I've never seen before. He frowned. Fascinating. I need to go into my lab and study this. Is it something you can do quickly? Jacob gave Carlyle a sharp glare. He looked ready to jump out of his skin. I won't know until after I've. Just hurry up, Doc, Jacob growled, exasperated. Let's get on with it. Carlyle headed up the stairs, turning the syringe as he moved. He passed Alice on his way up. Tough crowd, she joked lightly. Jasper, I'm ready to go. Jasper reached for one of the bags Alice held. We've got to go quickly. The trail is better when it's fresh. I'm not sure of our destination, but I have the suspicion we're going to be somewhere in South America. Duh, Jacob snarled. Let's go. Sorry, Wolf, Alice trilled. I see us traveling a little lighter for this trip. You'll be waiting with Bella and Edward. Not a chance, he began, outraged. She held up a small palm, quieting him for the moment. There are some things on this trip you won't be prepared for. Jacob's shaking grew more pronounced. Jacob, Esme started gently. I do treasure my furniture, so please. He reached his breaking point, exiting the house. He cracked the front door as he slammed it shut. Better the door than the piano, she sighed. Carlyle isn't any closer to finding the answer, Edward stated. He might be a while. Jasper nodded, beckoning to Alice. We'll be on our way. We'll give you a call as soon as we know anything. Likewise. Edward clasped his brother's arm gratefully. Thank you for this. She's ours, too, Alice stated simply. I turned from their display, trying to hold myself together. Rosalie was at my side in an instant. A syringe, I whispered. He wouldn't poison her or hurt her. Rosalie toyed with strands of my hair as she spoke. The rare display of affection, however slight, comforted me. Remember, she's probably the only woman like him who isn't related in some way. I clenched my fists and turned to her. That's why this is so hard. He's going to make very certain she belongs to him. Renesmee. The green surrounded me. Everywhere, silver dapples from the moonlight shifted upon dark leaves. In my mind's eye, I saw him chasing me through the forest. He would find me. My heart galloped wildly. I couldn't possibly outrun him. I had to outsmart him. He'd grown up in the rain forest. I'd grown up in a forest, too. What could I possibly do to trip him up? I picked up my pace, redoubling my efforts. Even if you managed to outrun me, you'd be easy to find, Nahuel commented lazily. His voice drifted toward forward. I glanced behind and gasped. Somehow, some way, he had managed to catch up. His strides, long and lithe, drifted over brambles and trees like a gazelle. He pursued me, staying back about 20 feet. I have much practice running for great distances. Many times I have been forced to run to save myself, sometimes I travel to hunt. I will follow you to the end. His voice rang with a note of finality. I'll fall over dead first, I snapped. That will never happen, he said, softly, gently. Please stop. Come to me. I will not harm you. Do you remember the other times I gave you the injection? I thought back in spite of myself. Yes, I remembered vaguely writing the letter to my parents. Nahuel's gentle coaxing as I cried, thinking of how little control I had over my body. I thought back on the flat-out run through the forest, the mad sprint that had brought me here. Somehow, whatever he'd given me made me, I grappled for the appropriate word, docile. I bristled at my own term. Anyone who drugs someone else, especially against their will, is not someone I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. You wouldn't have come with me. The simple statement left his lips, laden with sorrow. Of course I wouldn't. I glanced behind, surprised at his show of feeling. I don't know you, but I know you. Nahuel's voice, tender with emotion, touched me. Surprised me. You're a perfect stranger. I don't trust you. I pushed my body to its physical limits, running full out as I never had before, even with Jacob. I heard the smile in his voice, and a shiver crept down my spine. You will. I have no doubt in my mind you will. Bella. Curious, Carlyle said, obviously stumped. He examined the contents of the syringe, sometimes on glass slides under a microscope, sometimes on small strips of paper. It appears to be a cocktail drug of some sort. I stopped my pacing to study his face. Have you figured out any of it? From where I stand, any amount of knowledge about what we're dealing with is invaluable. His sharp eyes bored into me. I don't know if you're prepared to face this. I think it might be better if Edward and I are together on this one. I glared at Carlyle. You will tell me exactly what you've found, and you'll do it now. He stepped back. I'd never spoken to him in such a way. Look, I said, haltingly. I'm sorry. I've just been completely overwhelmed by the events of the night. Edward and I started the evening with everyone safe and sound, and now we've got Jasper and Alice trying to hunt down the man who kidnapped my daughter. There's some sort of liquid in that syringe, and if it turns out to be poison, I'll kill the man with my bare hands. Carlyle's eyes widened. He turned to Edward. Silently, they exchanged looks. A nod here, a dark look there. Spit it out, I said, setting my jaw. I can handle it. This isn't something I'd say if I weren't very sure of my conclusion, Carlyle said, his speech halting. I've found traces of a form of rehypnol. English, please. Rosalie, silent until now, spoke up. Carlyle sighed, and Edward closed his eyes. It had to be bad for Edward to react in such a way. Silently I walked to his side and gripped his bicep. The stone skin, sturdy beneath my hands, steadied my nerves. Is it poison? Esme's shaking voice, timid, so caring, drifted over the room. Sort of, Emmett grimaced, throwing a fleeting glimpse toward Edward. The fact that Emmett knew what this drug, this liquid, whatever it was, chilled me to the core. Carlyle took a deep breath, staring me straight in the face. Rehypnol is commonly referred to as the date rape drug. Renesmee. I could only run for so long. I had no idea where I was going, what I was doing. I simply had to get away from him. This is becoming tedious, Nahuel said lightly. I'm going to end this. Please don't fight me, and don't panic. You must succumb. I will always succeed when it comes to keeping you with me. Don't panic. Right, I snorted, stretching my legs to their limit. The trees blurred past. No way would he catch me without a fight. Never. We'd run into a small clearing. The trees thinned, and pine needles lay across the forest floor. I heard him before I felt him. Nahuel's solid body tackled mine from behind. I fought to stay upright, but my knees buckled. I cringed, feeling the trap close around me once more. We hit the ground rolling. His body cushioned my fall, if a wall of granite can do such a thing. We tumbled, my curly bronze hair capturing the pine needles around us. When our bodies finally stopped revolving, he'd landed on top of me. His arms caged me in, his caramel skin exposed where branches had torn his clothing. Those eyes. The red glow had dimmed, I could almost see a mocha color beneath. His breathing turned ragged. I felt my chest heave from the exertion. I couldn't tear my eyes from his face. He was beautiful, in a wild, exotic way. My breath hitched. I couldn't allow him to seem human. He was a monster, a kidnapper who had drugged me. All the same, I noticed him. The masculinity in every feature. His musky, alien scent. Something about him drew me in. I had to get back, though. Mom, Dad, Jacob. I closed my eyes, the pain of losing them crashing over me. Please, I breathed. Please, just let me go. All I want to do is go home to my family. I love them so much. I don't know anything about you or your life. I don't want to be a prisoner. I reached up with my palms to grasp his face. I wanted him to see how naked and alone I felt, my raw agony at being incarcerated. I wanted him to see it all through my eyes. I knew if I could only explain, only show him inside my head, he'd let me go. My one chance. I hesitantly reached for his high cheekbones with both palms forward. Bella. The room erupted in chaos. I felt like I was drowning. A faint memory tickled my brain, and I remembered drowning as a human. The ebb and flow of water around me, the peaceful bliss of not hearing. The recollection pulled me in. I tried to pull myself out, but the dim spark of humanity refused to release me. I thought, with a hysterical edge, that this must be how Edward felt when he first found out I was pregnant with Renesmee. The people within the room all seemed to slow down. Time was meaningless. My daughter had been drugged, and one of those drugs was used to rape innocent girls. This man, this fiend, had taken it upon himself to do the unthinkable. Edward's snarl ripped through the cacophony in the lab. It brought me back to the present. Bewildered, I looked to him. He always knew what to do. He'd find our daughter. He'd follow Nahuel's unique scent and rip him limb from limb. If he'd touched her, I growled, deep in my throat. We'd finish the man in a way to make Rosalie proud. What else is in there? Edward snarled. Please, Carlisle, I must know. Bella and I will be flying into Mexico or Panama tonight. I can't stay here waiting. Suddenly I thought of Jacob. I was grateful he'd left to run patrol. Probably he'd decided to run the perimeter in case Nahuel had left any other clues. It was a useless, time-wasting way to make him stay away. We need to go, I said, walking from the room. I heard Esme trying to calm herself, Rosalie and Emmett debating whether or not to go with us, and Carlisle murmuring to himself about what else was in the syringe. Edward followed me silently. I knew he was there. His scent, like sunshine and chocolate, wafted around me as I walked down the stairs, toward the front door, and then out into the yard. He reached for my hand, and we ran to our cottage. I found a bag and began to pack necessities. Money, a change of clothes, and our passports. Edward was on the phone making arrangements for the airline. We'd leave on the first available flight. Not Mexico or Panama after all. Edward felt Brazil, Rio, to be exact, would be closer to where Nahuel would eventually flee. I agreed with him. There would be no excitement on this flight, no happy anticipation. My daughter could be drugged and unable to defend herself from the advances of a complete stranger. I shuddered. Edward squeezed my hand. He knew all I was feeling, knew how hard this would be. We've got to get out of here without alerting the wolves, he said, surprising me. Why? I asked, puzzled. Jacob has already left to follow Jasper and Alice. He left as soon as he heard the name of the drug in the syringe. He'd been listening below the window, and now he's out for blood. He told the pack to stay put, but he didn't force them. Leah and Seth followed a short distance behind. He pinched the bridge of his nose, obviously pained. The packs are both here, but Jacob told the wolves in his pack to join Sam. He's almost crazy with anger and worry. He stroked my hand gently. We've got a problem. Jacob isn't exactly sensible when Renesmee's safety is involved. He could be careless. We need to cut him off at the pass. My teeth ground together. Let's go. Renesmee. I hesitantly reached for his high cheekbones with both palms forward. No. He jerked away from me. I was so stunned I missed my momentary opening. His body rolled off of mine in an instant. He reached over and grasped me around the wrist. I could feel the bracelet Jacob had made digging into my flesh. You must never show me, he said, his eyes intense. I need you with me. Until you're ready to be mine alone, I cannot risk it. I stared, astonished. The man seemed afraid of touching my palms. A slow smile spread across my face, and I reached forward once more. No, he backed away from me, his heels digging in the thick, fragrant pine needles. Please make this easy. Don't make it difficult. He wrapped one hand around both my wrists. The man certainly had strength. His eyes sparked, and I saw him reach behind his back. If you're going to drug me again, know that it won't be as easy as last time. I don't want to go with you. I thrust my hands forward, taunting him. Quick as a snake, his arm whipped forward and I felt a jab in my thigh. The world slowly faded away, replaced by a fog so thick I couldn't be sure it was real. I heard, as if from a distance, a voice. I'm sorry, love. I'm so sorry. The mournful note made me want to weep. The poor creature. My hands wouldn't move. My arms wouldn't move. The world around me shifted and blurred as we moved, going somewhere. Heavy. I was so heavy. The mire in my head, the buzzing in my ears, filled the world with nothingness. I'm sorry, the voice echoed once more. Bella. The car silently purred beneath us. I glared out the window toward the early morning, the slight changes taking place outside. The earth stirred as nocturnal creatures crept toward home. Other animals awoke as the first fingers of dawn reached toward the sky. There's nothing we can do right now, Edward sighed, his voice tight. No matter what happens in the meantime, we have to trust Jasper to find them. Jasper, Alice, Jake, Leah and Seth, I griped. We're stuck in a car. Edward looked at me, his face softening. I'm not a tracker, Bella. I wish I were right now, but I'm not. Jasper's the best. Jake is a good 2 hours behind him. It'll take a while for him to catch up. The wolves need sleep. Jasper doesn't. I wriggled in my seat, more from habit than need. I toyed with the seatbelt. I fiddled with my hair. The airport was crowded, as usual. Edward coolly handled the parking lot, lines, and boarding an airplane as though this were any random outing. My mind whirled and spun dizzily with all the horrors my daughter could face. I didn't know how it was possible for him to project such calm. The layover in Texas wasn't much better. I started to bounce my knee, waiting for our flight. Waiting. I glanced over at Edward, studying his face. His eyes were dark. Purple circles under his eyes stood out against the pale flesh of his cheeks. He watched my examination with interest. I think we should have hunted before we left, but I couldn't stand to wait another minute, I said, stroking his cheek. Tingles, fire, then awareness. Even with my daughter in danger, I still appreciated touching my husband. I understand and agree. His eyes twinkled. There are plenty of big cats in the rainforest. Good hunting, I asked, seeking a topic other than our shared misery. Excellent hunting. He glanced around the other seats in our section, then leaned forward to whisper in my ear. Last time I was there, I found some extremely large panthers. Tracking those cats. His voice trailed off, and he smiled with satisfaction. Mountain lions, panthers, they're all better than deer. He nudged me gently and whispered low enough for the humans to miss his message. That man over there thinks we're going on a hunting trip. Exotic game. I thought back in time, skimming over our previous conversation. Nothing incriminating had been said as far as I could remember. Will he realize what we mean? No, he chuckled. He's trying to mentally trump panthers with the time he fished for blue marlins. I leaned back against the seat, rolling my eyes. Humans. We boarded the flight uneventfully. I stared out the plane window, watching the scenery below. I'd never appreciated airplane rides as a human. They'd just been a way to travel. Now, the fields, homes, and foliage, or lack of in some places, held my attention. The acute vision I'd been gifted with allowed me to focus the miniature world below, seeing minute details clearly. My daughter could be down there anywhere. What are you thinking? Edward asked, his head tilted to one side. Wondering if we've passed over her head already. Truthfully, the idea that Renesmee might have been directly below caused my breath to catch. So close. She could have been so close to us and not known it. Most likely they haven't gotten too far. Edward reached over and caressed my hand. He traced my palm, the lines so like a map. Jasper is incredible. I have complete faith in him. The drug, though, I finally broached the topic I'd been dreading. What if he wouldn't? Edward's firm tone, set jaw clearly ended all friendly talk on the subject. He grasped my hand and squeezed it. I'm sorry, love, it's just not something I'm prepared to deal with yet. I've managed to escape thoughts of Renesmee. He pursed his lips and thought, being too adult, you could say. I don't want to think of another man taking advantage of her. She and Jake are meant to be together. It would destroy him to think of Nahuel touching her. As far as I know, Jacob's been a perfect gentleman. He grinned slightly, the corners of his lips turning up. Either that or he hides it very well. Renesmee too. His lips brushed the back of my hand. I'm not sure what to do if Nahuel's. Edward cleared his throat uncomfortably. We'll deal with him. I pursed my lips. We really should have brought Rosalie. I think she could have helped on this score. A glint in Edward's eye told me he agreed. His dark eyes held a hint of danger, obviously thinking of his daughter's captor. Don't worry, I think I can manage. Edward's maniacal thought was interrupted by the small silver phone in my pocket. Jasper and Alice. I swiftly pressed the answer button. Bella. Alice's voice sounded agonized. I'm sorry. We found a place in the woods where she got away from him. They ran a long distance before struggling in a clearing. It looked like he wrestled her to the ground and eventually overtook her again. Then there was another syringe. We followed the tracks back to where it seemed Renesmee originally started running. There was a stream nearby. She took a halting breath. His trail ended there. Renesmee. Drifting. Swirling. Random. The world bobbed and swayed as my head lolled back and forth. I was upside down. I frowned. No, that wasn't right. I was folded in half over someone. Someone carried me over their shoulder. Yes, that was it. My vision blurred. I blinked, trying to see. My view was relatively limited by my hair. The long, curly locks prevented me from seeing to the side. I was slightly cushioned by a bag near my head. I tried to move my hands. Neither one worked. I tried to wiggle my fingers. That didn't work either. I scowled, trying to wrap my fuzzy brain around the problem. I looked down and realized the problem. They were bound together, palm to palm. The effort of concentrating on my hands took a huge toll on my energy. I felt the darkness churn and boil, attempting to overtake me again. I fought it. The longer I was out, the more likely bad things were to happen to me. I focused the last bit of energy I had into looking down. Apparently we'd graduated from pine forest to desert. Sand barely shifted beneath my captor's bare feet. His feet weren't the only things moving, though. Tight-fitting leggings clung to his legs and bottom. His well-muscled buttocks flexed with exertion. I'd never seen haunches like that. I inhaled, feeling the warm air bring a slight amount of lucidity. I fairly gulped in oxygen now. We slowed, then stopped. I felt my body shift and slide, landing on my feet. Somehow, though, my legs had been replaced with jelly. They collapsed and I slid backward. Somehow my arms twisted around his neck, the binding preventing me from moving them. Strong arms roped me in, and I landed forward, my head against a strong chest. Are you well? Breath, sweet as honey, assaulted my nose. His arms shifted slightly and he crushed me into his torso. His head leaned onto mine. I couldn't speak. Too much was happening all at once. I felt every inch of his muscular arms, the sinews tight but lean. I sagged against him, relenting. Renesmee. Nahuel's concern seeped through my barriers. I had to answer. Fine. My voice sounded thin and shaky. His eyes bored into me. I began to feel squeamish. His eyes were now almost fully mocha-colored. You're thirsty. This was not a question. I'm fine, I insisted. I will find you someone and we will drink together. My face must have lost all color. A human, I squeaked. Bella. Jasper will find them. Nahuel walked into a stream with her, and we haven't been able to locate their scent on the banks of the river yet. We're following it to the best of our ability, but it's slow going. I rolled my neck, angry at the world. Edward plucked the phone from my hand. I shot him a dirty look. Any information could be vital to getting our daughter back. Alice, it's Edward. Get Jasper on the phone. I rolled my eyes and shoved him with my shoulder. It's always so nice to see you being kind to your sister. He ignored me. Jasper. The minutes crept on as he listened to his brother. My patience was wearing thin. A growl of frustration bubbled in my throat, but I managed to keep it in. We were nearing the airport. I felt the plane lose altitude. A message came over the intercom, telling us to stow all unnecessary items, put our seats up and trays away. All electronic devices were to be turned off. I smiled to myself. No way would a stewardess ask Edward to stop his call when our daughter was at stake. Nobody bothered us. I wondered if my shield worked on humans as well as vampires. Everyone seemed to be looking at something else, not paying attention to us in the least. Jasper, do your best. Find her. With that, Edward hung up the phone. Nothing new. I pressed. Not a thing. He sighed heavily, pinching the bridge of his nose. He'll find them in the end. I'll never let Nahuel rest. Never stop looking for Renesmee. He covered my hand with his, caressing tenderly. I ignored the pain in my chest. I couldn't let Edward into the fear, the agonizing, crushing agony I felt at knowing my daughter was at the mercy of another. I kept my breathing normal and looked him straight in the eye. I know we'll find them. The connecting flight was almost immediate, so we didn't have the burden of a layover. We simply walked from one flight to the next, ignoring everyone and everything around us. Once again, the flight was monotonous. Flying is faster than running, but at least if we were following a scent I'd feel like I was doing something useful, I grumbled. Patience, love, he soothed. I feel just as you do, but we have Jasper. He's better than any other tracker we could find. I thought of Edward's quiet, imposing brother. He loved Renesmee. The Cullens all treated her as if she were a rare treasure. I was so grateful to them for everything. And Alice. She was completely trustworthy. She'd found Nahuel and his aunt the first time, saving us from the Volturi. Something strange crept into my brain. A slight worry. I couldn't figure out what, but something about the Volturi bothered me. They'd left us alone for a very long time. Not a word, not a hint of danger from the vampires who had once tried to rip my family apart. Edward turned to me, his face grim. I know you're worried. I am too. I know it's been a while since we heard from Jasper, but it could be that he's on their trail again and doesn't want to stop. That's what Alice is there for. I turned toward the window. The airplane was feeling more claustrophobic by the minute. I glanced outside at the world below. Strange, how my life could be full of turmoil and the others around me wouldn't have a clue. I thought about this for a minute. I could use a distraction. Edward, I kept my voice low, hoping to avoid the attention of those around us. As much as you hate to do it, distract me with someone's thoughts, please. I gave him a sheepish expression. I could use a good story or two. He sighed and acquiesced. The man 3 seats over can't wait to get to a topless beach in Rio. I giggled, urging him on. The woman a few rows back, the one with blue hair, loves polka music. She follows polka bands all over the Southwest, but is on vacation right now. Someone in coach is wishing he could get up and go to the bathroom, but it's, already occupied. He grinned in my favorite crooked smile. A couple left their seats separately, but it's been 20 minutes, and they're both in there. The phone rang, and Edward snatched it up. Jasper, I hope it's good news. Renesmee, does this upset you? He asked, his expression puzzled. At once, it smoothed, and understanding took over. I had forgotten this strange custom you have in the north. He took a deep breath and looked around. I do not wish to leave you, but I must hunt for us. I see what waiting for food does to you. His hand caressed the delicate skin under my eyes. I jerked back, wincing. I do not wish to create his brow furrowed in concentration. A rift, yes, a rift between us. I do not wish for this. We are to be together, and what one wishes, the other wishes, too. I laughed aloud. I couldn't help myself. Really? Did you just hear what you said? I choked on the words. I've told you repeatedly all I wish, is to go home. You've dragged me away from my family and put goodness knows what in my body without my consent. He winced. Score 1 for Renesmee. He'd finally heard me. I continued, cheered. Furthermore, you have no right to touch my body, definitely that goes against my wishes. He leaned back, looking thunderstruck. Good. Served him right. I will think on this, he said slowly. I do not know what to do at this time. I do not wish you to be in distress, but I must take you home with me. You must understand the position I am in. I most certainly do not understand the position you're in, and you've done little to change that, other than to tell me I'm yours and I'm only safe with you. You tell me I'll die if I'm separated from you. That's a real relationship starter right there. My sarcasm was biting. He deserved it. I will hunt. You will stay here. He stood and was gone. My mouth was open. Nahuel was a strange one. Then again, I began to work at untying the binding around my hands. Bella. Jasper. Edward nearly barked into the phone. Sorry. Just checking in. Alice's ringing tones came over the line. We've been all over the place, Edward. We don't have any idea where they are. Her voice became garbled and cut off. I looked over in surprise, and realized Edward had crushed the small device in his hand. His face pinched in regret. I really didn't mean to do that. I heard the frustration in his voice. I'm surprised, Edward. You're usually so controlled. I guess this whole situation is overwhelming for even you. I smiled tenderly. We landed uneventfully. I'm glad we're here, I said slowly, but what do we do now? Edward looked at me with a thoughtful expression on his face. I don't really feel like waiting. I think we ought to consider going into the forest on our own. I lifted an eyebrow in confusion. There was a reason I decided to bring us to Rio, he confessed. I drew in a deep breath and felt my face harden. He stepped backward, feeling a mother's wrath directed squarely on him. And you felt no need to bring this up before now, because... I prompted. I wasn't given to rudeness, especially when it came to Edward. But he'd obviously kept something important from me. It's not what you think, he cautioned, palms raised in a gesture of peace. Truly, I know the general area where Alice found Nahuel and Hillen. The aunt, I prompted. Yes, the aunt, he continued. I thought Nahuel might be bringing Renesmee back to the only home he's known. Hillen might have an idea what's going through Nahuel's head. She might be able to help us. I gave him a pitying glare. Right, she'd help us. He's family, remember. If we feel so strongly about Renesmee after having her for 7 years, imagine the feelings she has for him after hundreds of years. That bond is too strong for her to betray him. He closed his eyes briefly. I've thought of that. We're stuck here, though, and we might as well busy ourselves with something. I just feel doing that is better than doing nothing. His eyes brightened slightly. Besides, you never know if she'll give him away with her thoughts. I agree, I said, feeling deflated. Sorry if I was inappropriate before, but I'm just a little on edge right now. Don't feel bad. I'm the one who ruined the phone, remember? He grinned slightly. We exited the airport. Thank goodness Edward knew Portuguese. He had a new phone within an hour. Jasper, it's Edward. I know you won't recognize this number, but it's my new phone. We had to replace the old one. I loved how he did that. No explanation, simply facts. We're in Rio. I'm going to try and find the place where Hillen and Nahuel live. Give me a call when you get this. He cut the line and placed the phone in his pocket. Where to? I asked, looking around the busy city. Follow me. He reached for my hand. We cut a path through the bustling crowd. Renesmee. Stupid South American knots. This guy hadn't learned his stuff through the Boy Scouts, that's for sure. I'd read the Girl Scout and Boy Scout guides as I grew up, and none of these stupid knots were in either handbook. They were combinations of a number of knots. I frowned. Not that I had a hand free to work the knots, either. Wow, epiphany. Was I half vampire or not? I rolled my eyes at my own stupidity and began to gnaw at the fabric with my teeth. Not too bad. Some of the fibers began to fall away, and I felt as though I were making progress. Until the screeching began. I looked down and groaned. Some sort of metal core in the middle of the rope. You had to be kidding me. I mumbled some choice words and began anew. The stuff wasn't budging. He'd be back soon. I attempted to stand and nearly fell on my face. Arms were important for balance. I'd read that in an anatomy and physiology textbook when I was young. I'd asked my mother why we needed toes, and she'd told me to look it up. I was probably pretty annoying in my Y stage, since my family loved to indulge my whims. I thought back. Steady, steady. I'd made it. On my feet. Now I had to be careful to stay that way. Bella. I was completely sick of this. The phone was finally ringing, and my hopes were up. Again. Jasper. Edward's tone wasn't friendly. No, it's Alice. I could hear her annoyance through the line. Just what did you do to your phone? Not now, he growled. Does Bella know how many electronic devices you've destroyed? Alice teased. You can tell her later, he snapped. What's going on? Well, Alice said, slowing her cadence, we've got good news and bad news. I always hated these games. Good news first. Edward saw-eyed, his eyes narrowing. We found the trail. Alice's voice didn't sound happy anymore. I dreaded what was next. And the bad news. We've got a real problem. What? I begged. What is it? Edward echoed. Jake found the trail before we did. He's hot in pursuit, and he's way ahead of us. We doubled back on the banks of the stream and discovered where Nahuel had jumped out. Nahuel has a talent for jumping, and we finally found his scent 40 yards or so from the banks. I felt my eyes open in surprise. 40 yards was nothing for a newborn, but Nahuel must be incredibly strong for a leap that large, not to mention carrying another person. He was carrying another person at that point. Did you find Renesmee's scent with him? Edward pressed. I held my breath. Yes, Alice said, allaying my fears. We found their scents together, along with pine needles that were apparently in Renesmee's hair. We've found strands of hair she's left. It's helping Jasper a great deal along the trail. How far ahead of you do you think Jake is? Edward asked, suddenly urgent. Like I said, he's way ahead of us. I couldn't say anything other than that. Alice's voice became smaller as she spoke. Edward wasn't exactly being his usual friendly self right now, and I felt bad for her. Thanks, Alice, I said into the receiver. We appreciate all the work you've done to help us out. I flashed Edward a look. Yes, thank you. His words sounded sincere. I gave him an encouraging smile. Let us know when you have anything more. Sure thing. Alice hung up. So, what do you bet that Jake screws this one up? Edward saw-eyed, tight-lipped. Renesmee. It's amazingly difficult to walk without being able to use your arms. They balance you. They keep you steady. I picked my way over the landscape. Desert. Bow ring. My mother had grown up here, shared happy memories with me about this type of place. Prickly pear grew high up in the mountains, whereas saguaro grew in the lower elevations. Her knowledge tickled my brain, teasing me. I had no idea where I was. The desert looked like it went on for miles. I could see mountains everywhere. Some had snow on them. Even if I managed to get away, Nahuel knew he'd win in the end. He'd known all along. I had to try. I held in my frustration and used it to fight. I wanted to run, to escape this man. He seemed so sure of himself. It drove me crazy. I plowed through some drifting tumbleweed and suddenly went to my knees. Something in the center of the plants had completely driven my legs out from under me. With a cry, I went down. I landed hard on my side, unable to catch myself. The grit of sand between my teeth only added to my humiliation. So this was how I would die. Alone. Afraid. My legs felt so strange. Had I been attacked by a snake? Suddenly, I wasn't alone. Calm, Nahuel said, staring into my eyes. A sense of peace drifted over me, and my body was instantly limp. Stay still, he urged. A warning bell rang inside my head. You're like Jasper, I said, feeling a bit odd. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. A blessing and curse, I assure you. He eyed my legs. You've been exploring the local plants. A plant did this to me. I gasped. A shame you didn't inherit the skin of your vampire father, he said, smiling. He walked to a prickly pear cactus and thrust the palm of his hand against it. The plant moved. He showed me his palm. A prickly pear, I asked, feeling foolish. I believe so, he said, glancing toward my legs. May I? You asked permission, I stated, momentarily stunned. Contrary to what you may believe, I truly wish no harm to come to you, he said, his mocha-colored eyes boring into mine. I would never take advantage of a situation or cause you to be uncomfortable if it were within my power. His eyes rested on my legs. May I? The stinging, burning sensation was overpowering. I felt tears prickling behind my eyes. All I could do was nod. There are tweezers in my first aid kit, he said, coming very close to my head. I'll get a bottle of water and you can rinse your mouth. He ran his fingers over my face, dislodging grains of sand and random debris. Please, listen to me this time and stay here. I will get all we need, including sustenance. All I could do was nod. He had all the power. After he left, I let the tears fall. Bella, thank goodness for Edward's gift. We followed his memory to where Alice's path had led her 7 long years ago. Rio was large and crowded. The sprawl caused our walk to be easier in some places and much harder in others. I felt the sensation of eyes following us, knowing what we were. Edward seemed to almost have an internal compass. He knew where to go, knew how to get there. I followed him feeling sad. Was Renesmee awake? Could she know how far we'd go to get her back? Edward, I asked, feeling shaky, how difficult will it be to find the village where Nahuel and his aunt lived? They didn't really settle in a town, he said, brushing some branches aside. They lived on the outskirts of many towns and villages. They hunted many places and traveled great distances. All we can do is hope to find the last place they stayed. There was one particular hut they went to every few years, simply because, he pursed his lips. You could say the hunting was good. I thought about Edward's statement and decided not to question it further. I wasn't really in need of any more information on these people. Getting Renesmee back was our first goal. Anything later needed to result in ripping flesh and flames. We walked for a while, but I became bored and restless. Do you think we could run? I asked slyly. He took off like a bullet. I followed him, laughing in exhilaration. We nearly missed it. We ran so quickly, and it came up so suddenly, anyone could have passed it by without looking twice. But not Edward. He stopped dead from his burst of speed. I didn't see him stop until I was nearly 20 feet ahead of him. His eyes wide, he motioned for me to stop and stay still. I hadn't mastered standing still as well as Edward, but I tried. He moved with stealth and grace, inching around some barrier I couldn't comprehend. His face scrunched in concentration. Oh, so cute when he concentrated. I turned slowly to face whatever he saw. A hut, simple, round and most likely built by a native. Someone with experience. Someone with expertise in the area. Possibly someone who knew Nahuel. Edward gestured frantically to me, telling me to stay put. He'd handle this. It was man's work. I imagined him pulling up his breeches, bracing himself and walking in loaded for bear. I rolled my eyes. He needed to give me more credit. I'm going in, too, I said. Then, I strolled to the door and knocked. Renesmee. How did his hands get so gentle? I felt the steady pluck of the tweezers as Nahuel gingerly pulled the cactus spines from the lower half of my legs. I winced, feeling each twinge. Nahuel stopped, running his hands up and down my arm. We shall be done with this soon, he soothed. Then I will let you rest. I will hunt for us. I closed my eyes as he resumed plucking. Do you really mean what you said? I asked, one eye opening. You'd change your eating habits to make me happy. Certainly. He didn't even look up. This response startled me. You don't seem like someone who cares what others think, I accused. I proved your statement wrong a moment ago, he said softly. What you say to me holds a great deal of merit. I cocked an eyebrow. When will you believe me? He asked, raising his voice. I wish only for you to be happy with me. We were made for each other. Stop fighting me. He turned back to the task at hand. Suppose I believe you, I said slowly. Suppose I agree we were made for each other. Why did you wait so long to claim me? He froze. Something I'd said truly upset him. Nahuel took a deep breath and let it out. I felt the air tickle my still manacled hands. He seemed to struggle with his answer. I waited for you to age so we would be equals, he stated. I did not wish for you to feel inadequate. Now you understand me. We shall not speak of this topic anymore today. I looked at him and almost burst out laughing. This man sure laid it all out on the table when it suited him. Yep, I said lazily. No more of that stupid, worthless exercise known as communication. Only the very foundation of every successful relationship. Shut your pie hole, Renesmee. For the first time, I saw the corners of his mouth turn up in a very real smile. He tried to hide it, but it burst through his countenance like a ray of sunshine. Are you actually smiling? I asked, confused but pleased. Perhaps, he said. His mouth twitched. He proceeded with work on my leg, and I bit my lip against the stings. The man had a sense of humor, however hidden. Finally, he was beginning to see me as a person. With a little luck, his guard would slip, and I could escape. Bella. Nobody answered. Of course, Edward would have easily picked the lock, except there was none. The door wasn't exactly the type we had in Forks. Nothing about this place reminded me of home, except of course the humidity. We pushed through the door. We could have walked through the back wall. The entire section, made out of local wood and grasses, was in ruins. They were here, Edward said grimly. I smell their scent. My nose wrinkled. I recognized the wild, foreign smell of Nahuel and his aunt. I furrowed my brow. There's something else here, though, I said, looking to Edward for confirmation. Yes, he said, his face hardening. I can't be sure, but I think there's more to this. He whipped out his cell and dialed before I'd even fully registered his comment. Jasper, he barked. Get to Jacob right now. Find him. This is bad, very bad. We've got a major problem on our hands. Edward wasn't prone to exaggeration. Moodiness, sure. Overprotective, definitely. But exaggeration. I waited for him to hang up the phone. Jasper talked for a while, and Edward looked frustrated. His eyes burned. Jasper, he said, interrupting whatever his brother had been saying. Dimitri has been here. I stilled. Why would Dimitri come here unless he was sent by the Volturi? Edward looked at my shocked expression and reached toward my hand. I stared at his palm stupidly. The Volturi was mixed up in my daughter's disappearance. The lines of his palm were so perfect. I wished I knew how to read palms. Did his lifeline continue all the way across his hand? Did mine? Did Renesmee's? His hand grasped mine and squeezed. His eyes bored into mine. An apology, regret pooled within their depths. If Jacob gets too close to this situation, they will kill him. They'll study him, trap him. When they find out he wouldn't even consider an alliance, his chin tightened. They'll treat him like a threat and find any excuse to eradicate him. I closed my eyes, knowing he spoke the truth. You have to find him, Jasper. I hate to rest this on your shoulders, and I hate even more making you abandon the search for Renesmee. As soon as you find Jake, we all have to meet and plan what to do next. He listened for a moment to his brother's voice and then terminated the call. His lips were in a grim line. We have to call everyone and get them down here as quickly as possible. We've got to figure out what the Volturi has to do with this. If they had Nahuel kidnap her for them, we're going to take them down. His free hand fisted. He pulled my hand to his lips, caressing the knuckles with a soft kiss. What about Jake? I asked, my voice small, lifeless. His phone was out in a heartbeat. Sam, this is an emergency. Call in every wolf you have. Jacob could be in mortal danger. You have to warn him. Tell him to stop tracking Renesmee. Tell him we've got more information, and that it's imperative he meets us. Renesmee. I leaned back against the rock, relieved. He was gone for the moment, but he'd be back. I knew he'd be back. I closed my eyes against the dusk, drinking in the sunshine. I'd rarely gotten to experience so much sunshine. My family wasn't able to enjoy this, the warmth, the strength of the sun in public. I relaxed slightly. I was giving him a chance to see I wouldn't escape. I'd lull him into a false sense of security, then the second I had an opening, I'd take off. I sighed. I preferred blood over human food. That was a fact. I'd hunt with my family. The Cullens often went on outings. I tagged along with Jake. Jake. My heart ached at the thought. He'd do anything to get me back. My best friend. He and I rarely spent a day apart. He listened to me, cared what I thought. He never judged. He was never rude. To me, at least. He was so imposing. His warm body could hug me all the way to my toes. I frowned. Something was always missing there, though. Jake and I, well, we were so chaste. He was clearly protective. His every movement warned others off. However, he never was intimate, either. I'd never been kissed. The thought embarrassed me. I was the equivalent of a 16 to 17-year-old woman who had never been kissed. Not from lack of want, but from lack of boys. I frowned. Jake scared everyone off. He'd never attempted to kiss me himself, but somehow, had warned other males that I wasn't to be touched. I ran my fingers through my hair, feeling the grit, sand, and tumbleweeds tangled within the locks. My hands and feet were bound. My hair and clothes were disgusting, and goodness knew what the crazy kidnapper had in mind for dinner. The sun set beyond the mountains. I shivered. The air here changed perceptibly once the sun was gone. Nothing warned me of his presence, but I suddenly knew he was behind me. I didn't bother to acknowledge him. "I have food," he said softly. I didn't turn. "You must eat," he pressed. I lowered my head into my arms. "Please," he breathed. Something within me stirred. I felt almost sorry for Nahuel, yet I didn't know why. I lifted my head from my arms. Then, I laughed. It felt good to laugh. I looked at the food he'd gathered and couldn't help myself. Nahuel had obviously tried very hard to guess what type of food I would be interested in eating. There were some small random fruit I guessed had to be from a cactus, a road runner, a skunk, and a giant wild pig. He saw me laughing and began to laugh himself. "As you may guess, I did not know what you prefer," Nahuel said, smiling at me. "Perhaps you could give me a hint." "Hand over the pig," I said, rolling my eyes. "It's bound to be better than the skunk." Bella. Jake hadn't answered our calls at first. Sam had acted as cell phone and called to the other alpha, telling him that he needed to stop right away. That his life was in danger if he continued to track Renesmee. He'd stubbornly refused to do anything different, had even pressed onward faster. Then Sam had told Jacob what we absolutely didn't want him to know. The Volturi were involved. We didn't know how deeply, but they had sent Dimitri to see Nahuel and his aunt sometime in the recent past. That got his attention. He'd been reluctant to leave the hunt, but when he had mulled over the idea of a werewolf versus Volturi confrontation, Leah and Seth had convinced him to meet up with us. So here we were, the Cullens, Jake, and the Clearwaters. We'd met up in Rio at a hotel. As if we'd never left Forks, Jake had resumed his pacing. "We don't know what he's doing to her," Jake growled, running his hands across his face. "He could have her completely drugged out and—" "That's enough," Edward cut him off. "We don't know that these drugs work the same on Renesmee as they work on humans," Carlyle said matter-of-factly. Something about this situation didn't seem right to me. There was a missing link in this chain. My brain felt almost human. Sluggish. "Why is the Volturi involved?" I asked. Voices erupted, spilling more questions than answers. I waved my hands in the air. "Maybe the better answer is, if Nahuel and his aunt live out here, where's his aunt?" The air stilled. "I think that's obvious," Emmett said, stepping forward. "The Volturi's got their fingerprints all over this." "Slow down," Jasper interrupted. "They wouldn't try to get involved in a kidnapping scheme. Would they?" I followed his gaze, and just as suddenly the room's focus shifted to Alice. She was sitting atop a dresser across the hotel suite. "Dimitri is traveling with Hillen." Alice looked up, her almond eyes steady. "I don't know why, but they're together. She's alive and doesn't seem upset." Confusion. I looked around and felt the uncertainty stretch into a question. Why would Dimitri even have cause to see Hillen, let alone travel with her? "The next step, I think, is to find Hillen," Jake said, gnashing his teeth. He looked around the room, glaring. "That's what I think you want to do, anyway. If you bloodsuckers want to stall, that's fine. Find the stupid aunt. Do whatever you want. We've wasted enough time, and I'm done with waiting. I'm going after Renesmee." He stomped from the room. "Renesmee? So you live this way all the time?" Nahuel asked, incredulous. He tossed the remnants of the skunk aside. I couldn't help laughing a little. "Yes," I answered, wiping my mouth. "Though I wouldn't have chosen a skunk for your initiation into drinking animal blood." I sat up with my knees pulled into my chest for warmth. Animal blood's really not that bad. I prefer human blood, but the rest of the Cullens don't indulge. "Why not?" His eyes narrowed. "It's our nature. They don't want to be monsters." I looked at my bound hands, trying to figure out how to wipe off the dirt and blood caked there. Eventually I settled for my jeans. "And you?" I thought carefully before answering. "I don't want to hurt people. I like humans." My grandfather Charlie is one of the kindest, nicest people around. I wrinkled my nose, thinking. He does like to fish, which really smells bad, but other than that he's wonderful. He's taken me fishing a few times. We have fun. We go out on the boat, talk, enjoy the day when the weather's good. I sighed, missing him. Missing all of them. Do you prefer human blood? He asked, serious. Of course, I answered, looking at my knees. It's better. I just don't like how I feel afterward. I looked up at him sharply. I've never been thirsty enough to go after a human. The Cullens used to give me donated blood when I was a child. Interesting. His eyes showed that he meant his words. We sat in silence for a few minutes. After a while, I noticed him grimacing. What is it? I asked, puzzled. Did I say something wrong? No, he said, his voice tight. But we must move soon. I looked around. Nothing for miles. Out here, the sky was enormous. I could clearly see many constellations, and him. His skin gleamed in the moonlight. His eyes shone, reflecting the stars. Why do you look so upset? I asked, still confused. I've tried to run. I haven't gotten anywhere. It's not like I'm going anywhere now. I'm obviously traveling with you. What's wrong? His grimace grew. I must sedate you again. Bella, I'll go after him, I said, rising. I've got this one, Leah said coolly, cocking an eyebrow meaningfully. He's a busy guy when that lone hamster in his head's going full tilt on its wheel. He might listen to me. Maybe. She gestured meaningfully at Edward. Besides, you've got full access to the conversation on all sides of the argument. She tossed her hair and followed Jake. I sat back down. The room was full. Anxious. Seth twiddled his fingers, fairly shaking with anticipation. Yet somehow we still didn't know what to do. I gritted my teeth in frustration. I looked to Edward and raised my shoulders, silently asking what our next move was. He closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. Ah, classic Edward. I looked around the room at the other faces. So still, sad. I waited, feeling the way Sam looked. We need to figure out how the Volturi figure into all this, Jasper said, breaking the silence. We all looked to him at once. The Volturi don't just send people out on random missions. There are reasons. We have rules, like keeping someone's aunt a prisoner. Emmett challenged. Jasper shook his head slightly. We don't know she's a prisoner. We don't know she isn't a prisoner, either, Emmett said triumphantly. Let's go after Dimitri and figure it out. Do we have any other option at this point? Carlyle asked. Carlyle had to have some ideas. It startled me that he was asking questions instead of bouncing ideas. As the head of the family, he was the rock, the go-to guy. I don't know. Something's bound to come up eventually if we think on this enough. Jasper looked around the room for support. So we're going to wait and see, Rosalie said in a huff. I'm with Emmett. Let's find Dimitri and ask Helen about her nephew. Then we can see if she knows where Nahuel is taking her. They don't have a house anymore, Edward sighed, looking up. He could take Renesmee anywhere. Do we have any other options? Carlyle repeated. Alice hadn't entered my mind until that minute, but I looked to her now. She stared blankly ahead. Alice, snap out of it, I said, walking toward her still figure. What did you see? She looked at me, still staring wide-eyed. They're in the desert, but I'm not sure where. They have plans to go all the way to Forks if they can't find them. She looked at me blankly, still not seeing. It's a trap. Renesmee. Really, aren't we past that yet? I shifted on the ground, trying to find a more comfortable spot. Every rock in the whole area seemed to be beneath my behind. I promised to be a good girl. I won't squirm. A thought occurred to me. If you untie my hands and feet, I'll even run alongside. No, Nahuel cut me off. Come on. I huffed out the word, incredulous. This is stupid and childish. Carry me if you must, but don't shoot me full of drugs. He looked at his hands. They were clenched tightly into fists. I'm sorry, he said softly. I don't have a choice in this. He pulled out the syringe. I didn't fight it. Nahuel stood, a syringe in his hand. Had it been there the whole time? My stomach felt sick, but I swallowed back the fear and fury. I watched, pored over his every move with a gaze so intense I hoped he felt scorched. I felt the bite of the needle. His sad eyes and sagging shoulders were the last sight I saw before the drugs pulled me under. The next thing I knew, the air was warm. It surrounded me and caressed the hair flowing around my face. Strangely, I wasn't bouncing against Nahuel's back. He held me in his arms. I tried not to move. The slightest change could give me away. I know you're awake. Nahuel's voice soothed. He slowed his pace until we finally stopped. I was able to get a good glimpse of the surrounding area. Where are we? I asked, unsure. The landscape was full of rocks and hills, not at all like the last time I'd been awake. Nearly home. He set me down gently. You can take a break if you need. My knees gave out suddenly, and I sagged against his body. Sorry, I mumbled. He held me firmly against him. You cannot help it. Besides, his lips curled up, this is not so bad. It is how our lives will always be. I am here to help you. Then I'd rather fall flat on my face, I said, feeling a surge of anger. I pulled away from him. Or should have. His arms didn't falter an inch. You will not fall when I am near. Stop it with all this hokey. I'm the man, business. My mom taught me to be self-sufficient and to get along on my own. There's nobody more powerful than my mom. She could run circles around you. I felt a smidge triumphant at my true statement. Nobody knows this better than I, Nahuel said, nodding. I have seen what she can do. And you still risk taking me. I felt dumbfounded, nearly laughed. Why? Do you have a death wish? I have my reasons, he said, pulling me to my feet. Rest assured, they make this worth the risk. Bella, what's a trap? I asked, shocked. Which part? I don't know. Alice closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. Jasper walked over and pulled her into his arms. I only know that we've got no choice at this point. If the Volturi's involved, it's a lot bigger than we realized. Great. Emmett's grin stretched wide. I love a good fight. His dimples faltered only when Rosalie smacked him on the back of the head. Thanks, I said, grateful. I'd have done that, only I was too far away. No problem, she said, glaring at Emmett. We tracked Nahuel all the way into Texas before you called, Jasper commented, hugging Alice to him. We could go back to that point. No, Carlyle said, rubbing a hand across his chin in agitation. Why not? Edward asked in surprise. If the Volturi's involved, we have to watch our step. That situation already got us in deep. He cleared his throat. Well, we aren't going to get a Christmas card from them anytime soon. We don't want to provoke them. What about? We part today, good friends once more, and all that jazz. Emmett asked, looking around. Carlyle laughed without humor. You have no idea how many times that was said, and the next thing you know, they've got an enormous fire going with the remnants of their friends. Nice friends to have, Emmett intoned, shaking his head. We're splitting up, Alice said, looking up. Esme cried out, her low protest that of a wounded animal. Who's going where? Carlyle asked. Edward and Bella are going to find Hillen. Jacob needs to be talked out of his plan, so it's important the wolves stay with us. Emmett will be the best to hold him. She looked for confirmation. Emmett nodded and grinned his approval. Esme and Carlyle will need to see to Nahuel and Renesmee when they're found, but I don't know where they are. She shook her head in frustration. It's so annoying to not see them. How do you know they're going to be with Nahuel and Renesmee? I asked, confused. Where do you see them going? That's the problem, Alice said, her voice dark with sadness. I don't know. No matter what path I see them going toward, they suddenly disappear. Renesmee. So we're nearly home, I said, taking in my surroundings. What does that mean? Hours, miles, what? We have many miles to go still, but we have made much progress. He relaxed his hold on my body. I swayed on the spot, still feeling tipsy from the drugs he'd given me. Shall we sit? He gestured toward a fallen log. I tripped my way toward it, feeling his hand on my back. This is annoying and stupid, I said, lifting my arms toward his face. The bound wrists were chafed and red. My skin might be stronger than human skin, but not by a lot. At least my ankles weren't bound together as tightly. I could walk, if a little stilted. He shied away from my hands and I stumbled. I am sorry. His lips mashed into a firm line. He helped me sit on the log. I lifted my eyebrows in response. It is necessary to bind you. I wish for different circumstances, but it is not so. You must come with me. This is the only way to ensure you will stay with me through our entire journey. He closed his mouth abruptly as if he'd said too much. Where are we going to end up? I asked, confused. I thought you said we were going home. We are, he said, looking away. Rest while you can. Bella. They disappear. Jasper looked at Alice, his expression dark. They're just gone. She gave him a meaningful glare. As if any of us would miss the ramifications of her words. There's not much else we can do at this point, Jasper said, turning his face from Alice. Unless we suddenly get some sort of sign to do something else, we need to split up, as Alice said. We can't just wait any longer. The more time we take, the worse it'll be. Wait a minute, I said, my mind whirling. How did Alice know we were splitting up? Everyone looked at me. I hated being the center of focus. Alice, how do you know Carlisle and Esme aren't going to stay with the wolves? Wouldn't that cause them to suddenly fall off the map? I turned to Seth. You've been pretty quiet over there. Do you have some input in all this? Jake's going crazy right now, he said soberly. I don't know what to think. Those Volturi sound like bad news, and I don't want Renesmee to be stuck in the middle. He grimaced. Jake's going to do whatever he thinks is best. He'll let you think he's going along with your plan, but unless you actually get his word that he'll do it your way, well, he shrugged. That's Jake for you. I'm not surprised. Edward closed his eyes briefly, shaking his head. Let's get on the move, Jasper said, sighing. This room is getting to me. Alice touched him on the arm. They moved as one, swiftly hugging and shaking hands around the room. She came to hug me and I felt a strong wave of love for my sister. Stay safe, I urged her, feeling her short hair brush my chin. Her response, a mischievous grin, caused my throat to tighten. I mean it, I warned. If something happens to you, I broke off, feeling lost. The Volturi wants me more than they want to destroy me, was her whispered reply. What could she possibly mean by that? Wait, I said, trying to catch her as she fled from my grasp. But she was already gone. Renesmee. I looked up from the log. Nahuel looked at loose ends. He'd started to pace, sat down, looked around, put his face in his hands, stood up and paced again. I'm getting dizzy from watching you, I complained. I am sorry. He sat down again, raking his hands through his hair. This is hard. On who? I asked, eyebrows raised. Both of us, he confessed. He reached toward my hair, but I ducked his hand. I am sorry, he said softly. For what? I challenged. For drugging me, kidnapping me, taking me from my family and telling me I'm going to stay with you no matter what. Tell me, Nahuel, which part is it? His eyes suddenly went soft. What? I snapped. You said my name. His voice was so tender all my anger melted away. What did you expect me to call you? I said, lowering my voice. You are a person after all. I don't feel like a person. I feel like a monster. He turned away from me, anguish in his voice. We're all monsters sometimes, even humans, I remarked. He turned back to me, his eyes deep, liquid pools. Would you ever forgive me for what I have done? Could you ever see me as anything but a monster? I felt puzzled. My brain said no, I shouldn't ever forgive this man for anything. He had no right to forgiveness. Yet I also wanted him to be my friend. Feel that I was trustworthy. Feel like I'd never try to escape. It depends on the circumstances, I said, hoping my words sounded sincere. His face reflected the hope of a child. Slowly, almost reverently, he leaned toward me. At first I thought he was going to kiss me. I didn't want him to, but I also didn't want to be drugged again so soon. His lips moved forward, but they landed on my forehead. Then everything went black. Bella. We were on the move. Jasper and Alice were goodness knew where. Edward and I were running toward the abandoned three-sided hut. Emmett was keeping a lid on the werewolf situation. He was currently trying to shove them toward Esme Island, but without knowing where Renesmee was, Jake turned every idea down flat. We're nearly there, Edward sighed, slowing. The hut hadn't changed in the few hours we'd been away. The scents weren't easy or hard to track. Dimitri and the ant went one way, Nahuel went the other. There was no track from Renesmee. He hadn't brought her back here, at least, not yet. We followed Hillen's scent for a while, noticing that she'd left small signatures along the way. Broken branches, crushed leaves. She knew someone would be coming. Was Nahuel going to join them sometime? I wondered aloud. She left a clear trail. Dimitri would have noticed if she'd done that. Edward frowned, his fingers caressing a leaf. Maybe they wanted Nahuel to follow them once he'd gotten Renesmee. Arrow. I snarled. All of them, Edward growled. They're all curious. She'd be a perfect person to convince you and I to join the Volturi. Once they've got her brainwashed they think they could get us. Perhaps you're easily swayed, I said airily, but frankly, I can't wait to have a round with Felix. Edward reached for me so fast I was off my feet before I knew he'd done it. You will never, ever go after Felix, he growled fiercely. You might be a shield, but I'm a fighter. Jasper and I have training sessions, you know. His eyes widened. No, I didn't know. Yup, I said, lifting my chin. I'm just as good as Emmett. Not as strong physically, but mentally. I tapped my temple. I'm at the top. He sighed and ground his teeth together. You aren't allowed to fight Felix. Too bad, I said, looking to the sky. I feel like I owe him. Edward threw me from his arms onto my feet, then tugged my arm until we were holding hands. You're a mystery sometimes, you know that? He asked, his eyes solemn. Sure. Suddenly he threw his arms over my shoulders and knocked me to the ground. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Someone's here, Edward mouthed. Coming up behind us, on our trail. He motioned to where we'd just been. I froze, suddenly terrified. Renesmee, Renesmee. The broken cry roused me from the depths. I felt as though a hammer had hit my forehead. Searing images crossed my mind. The Volturi. A woman begging me, her distress obvious even though I didn't understand the language. Nahuel's fear, his rage, his anguish. I fought the darkness surrounding me. Please come back to me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The voice was so ragged, it broke my heart. Why was he worried? My befuddled brain would come around soon. There wasn't any reason to be so upset. Or was there? I lay in his arms limply, forcing myself to be a rag doll. Would he abandon me if he thought I was out cold? No, of course not. The guy was relentless. Instead of being drugged, he'd just take me along as I was. Just as well, though. I'd prefer to be aware rather than a vegetable. My brain tried to sort through the haze and wake up. I'd been on the log, and he'd come toward me. Renesmee, can you hear me? Please, say something. Open your eyes. Let me know you're there. What was with this guy? I was both amused and annoyed. He wanted me drugged when we moved, but wanted me aware when we stopped. We'd sat on the log. Then what? My mind only remembered flipping through thoughts of the Volturi and the poor, sad woman. Renesmee. His voice was sharp. A different tactic. His hand slapped at my cheeks. You have to wake up. Wake up now. Come back. Bossy. That was the last thought I had before feeling my body leave the ground. He'd picked me up again. This time, we were moving fast. Much faster than before. Renesmee, he said over and over as he ran. My head was lolling on my neck over his arm. I couldn't readjust without him noticing, though. As soon as the thought came, it was as if he heard me. He cradled me securely to his chest, my head near his shoulder. I'll get you somewhere safe, he vowed. I promise I won't hurt you. This wasn't supposed to happen, he said fiercely. We were supposed to have an easy trip. They were supposed to come after you. Love triangle gone bad, was the term they used. An easy way to get to your family and those dogs. Whoa, did I just hear that right? My body stiffened involuntarily, and all movement ceased. Renesmee, his tone softened. Renesmee, please, let me know you are well. I opened my eyes, unable to mask the hostility I felt. My family, Jake, they'd been set up, and I was the bait. Bella, I can hear them, he breathed. They're coming fast. I brought up my shield as soon as his words were out. I hated to think of us lying prone in the middle of the jungle, but if we stood, we'd give our position away. Suddenly I heard snuffling. Jake, I said, standing. The big red wolf bounded up to me, ears back. His eyes narrowed and I could easily feel the displeasure rolling off of him in waves. There's not much we can do right now, I said calmly. Phase to human and we'll talk. Jake looked down his long nose at me. Seriously, Jake, we've seen you phase a time or two. Besides, it's not like I've never seen a naked man before, I teased. Suddenly the world spun dizzyingly. Edward, I said through my teeth, kindly warn me next time before you do that. I'm a big girl, I can deal with whatever's going on. You really don't need to see him change, love, Edward crooned. His other hand swept through my hair. He's not much to look at anyway. Jake must have been changing into his clothes at that point because I heard a very human male voice snort. We should strip and let the muscles argue that point, Jake said, sounding amused. We don't really have time for that, Edward sighed lightly. So how did you get past Emmett? Jake chuckled, looking more upbeat. I ripped his legs off and beat him with them. I stood still, horrified. You didn't really do that, did you? With my trilling voice, I sounded far less horrified than I felt. No, Jake sobered. I did actually rip his legs off, but I threw them in different directions off the hotel balcony. Rosalie was annoyed, but last I knew, she was tracking them down. No big deal. Bad dog, I said, smacking his arm. We're going to get blamed for that, I hope you know. I noticed then that he'd come alone. Where are the other two wolves? He sighed, looking up at the treetops. Seth is way too nice. He went off at a run looking for Emmett's left leg. I thought about giving an alpha command to him, but it's stupid to force them into stuff when they're trying to help me out. He shook his head, running fingers through his shoulder-length hair. Whatever. I don't care what they do right now, he said, glancing at Edward. What's going on with you two? Found anything yet? Nope. Nothing besides what I'm sure you've already noticed. Edward gestured toward a broken branch. The foliage was so thick here, so different from back home. The forest around Forks had some trails, but mostly it was what I used to consider thick forest. Here, however, it was a sea of green. You could bend down by a fraction and be invisible. Only your smell would give you away. We're looking for Dimitri and Hillen, I said to Jake. We figure they left Nahuel a clear trail back to them so he could find them. He nodded once, then went on alert mode. His fingers skimmed tree branches, his eyes raked the ground. I can get better details in wolf form, he said lightly. I'll be out to the south, so be looking in any other direction but south, okay? It's kind of weird if Renesmee knows you've seen me naked too many times. He flashed a quick grin me. I turned to see Edward's shoulders stiffen. He's kidding, I called out toward my husband. He still knows you're an attractive woman, was Edward's reply. I sighed, annoyed. What are we going to do about Dimitri and Hillen when we finally find them, anyway? I asked Edward. He shrugged. Hope that they didn't bring Felix, Jane and Alec along, he said, skimming a hand along my jawline. I swallowed hard. We're going to beat them if they start a fight over this, I said, feeling the shield push out from my body with the force of my words. We're in the right here. She's ours. We protect our own. His lips turned up slightly. They have some explanation for what they're doing. They always have an airtight reason for everything. Be prepared for more than one diversion from the truth as we know it. His head whipped around suddenly. Jake found something. Renesmee. I glared up at Nahuel. What's really going on here? I snarled. There's so much you aren't telling me. I saw things I didn't understand, when you kissed me. This isn't a kidnapping. This isn't unrequited love. You might care for me, but I don't feel sparks. I doubt you do, either. He stopped dead. Really stopped. No movement whatsoever. His eyes bored into my skull. I cannot help you understand, he stated. His eyes searched mine, probably hoping for some forgiveness. Not likely. Tell me what's going on, I stated. This isn't right. I held up my bound hands. Someone who loved me wouldn't do this to me. You don't want me to touch you with my palms. I guess now I understand you want me to put up with you and your strange plan, but this is wrong. I shook my hands in emphasis. Nahuel, you're probably a very nice person. Under different circumstances we might have been friends. But this has got to stop. He licked his lips. His lips were, admittedly, very attractive lips. This raised some vague memory, fuzzy around the edges. Those lips came at me. You kissed me, I accused. I wriggled until he set me down. I stared at him in disbelief. You actually kissed me, and that caused me to black out. He turned his face away, but I still saw the look of shame cross his features. This was not the easiest journey. I have weaknesses. He struggled for a moment. While not human, I am a creature with some human instincts. I am sorry. Do not trouble yourself. It will not happen again. I laced my fingers together and slammed into his side as if I were hitting a volleyball. You cretin. You villain. You bawling, blasphemous, uncharitable dog. I couldn't seem to hit him enough. My anger, fear and frustration was overwhelming. I felt tears prick behind my eyelids. His lips twitched, then turned upward. The tears started to fall then. Do not be distressed, he murmured. I was merely amused by your use of Shakespearean insults. My mouth fell open. You recognize Shakespeare. I am not a complete monster. I do read and enjoy a variety of pastimes outside my jungle. Nahuel stepped away from me and looked to the sky. Please, Nahuel, I begged. Please tell me what's going on. He sighed, lifted his hand toward my face, then let it fall against his side. I should think it were painfully obvious. However, if it is not, I shall explain. But please, not now. We need to move quickly. I rolled my eyes to the sky. Look, I haven't properly slept in quite a while. I don't even know how long we've been traveling. Huge portions of this trip are completely gone from my memory. I have hazy recollections, but that's it. Could we at least stop the whole drugging thing? His gaze shifted to the ground. I do not think. Stop right there, I said coldly. This is above and beyond what any normal kidnapper would go through. Am I supposed to believe that this is a normal kidnapping? He paused a beat, then nodded his head slowly. Great. Then I'm going to tell you how normal kidnappers would go about this. My Uncle Emmett loves to watch movies where bad guys do things like rob banks and keep people as hostages. Have you asked my parents for money? His eyes looked completely blank. Fine, I said, closing my eyes and shaking my head. That would have been the first start. You ask for ransom, or you blackmail them. You've given me yet another doubt that this is a regular kidnapping. He opened and closed his mouth, obviously changing his mind about what he needed to say. Step 2, I continued. Do you have a way to communicate with them now? Again, nothing registered in his eyes. I have their cell phone numbers, I said, tapping my temple. I've known them forever. You can give them a call and tell them what you want. But he stammered. Actually stammered. I giggled internally. I don't have a cellular phone, he admitted. Not at all, I asked, dumbfounded. No, I laughed. The guy had no form of communication to the outside world. He had me as a hostage, while there was obviously someone else involved. Tell it to me straight, I said, straightening my shoulders. Who do you work for, and why am I here? Bella, what did he find? I asked urgently. Does he know what's going on? Before Edward could answer, Jake bounded up to us. He held something in his mouth, but deposited it on the ground in front of us. Ew. Dog drool, I commented. Edward reached for the red and gold item, lifting it up. It was some sort of cord. This is the belt of a Volturi cloak, he said. I saw his fingers clench around the rope. There's more than one of them. Jake said the cold smells emanating from the Volturi showed that at least 3 went through. They had Hillen with them. This is really strange, I said. I'm not sure I follow what's happening here. They're gathering strength as they travel, Edward sighed lightly. Rallying the troops farther away. They have to know we'll follow Renesmee to the ends of the earth. We'll get them in the end. I sighed, but still no sign of Renesmee. Edward paused, then said, not a one. They haven't come this way yet. Edward lifted his eyebrow and gave me a look. Well, okay then, I said, turning away. Edward spun me back to face him. Please, Bella, that's painful. Don't be upset. I simply don't understand why you insist upon clarification of something more than once. Because I want you to be absolutely dead sure, I said. We are. So what's next? I asked, thinking. Suddenly my eyes grew large. A terrible thought occurred to me. What is it? Edward was instantly alarmed. Alice couldn't see Carlisle and Esme, I started. She said they'd be going with the wolves, because no matter what plan she saw us follow, their futures disappeared. The cell was out and he was furiously dialing before I finished speaking. I held my breath. Please pick up, I thought in my head. Nothing. Nobody answered. Renesmee. His shoulders slumped. The motion made me feel guilty, as if our roles were reversed. I lifted an eyebrow. The Volturi have Hillen, he stated bluntly. That's terrible, I said without inflection. Who's Hillen? My aunt, he confessed. She raised me. She is like a mother to me. Stunned. The woman I'd seen in my head when Nahuel had kissed me. Suspicious, I stepped forward. What kinds of powers do you have? I asked, already certain of the answer. When I touch people with my lips, they can see past events from my life. They can see what I love, what I fear, what I know. The way that people can see my images. When I touch others with my palms. I finished. Yes. Then where does that leave us? I pressed. I'm supposed to help you get her back from them. The Volturi want to make a trade. Nahuel said, avoiding my eyes. Me for her. Something like that. He turned away, shifting the bag he always carried up on his shoulder. He turned back, his gaze piercing. Will you promise not to run away? Scout's honor, I promised. He came toward me and cut the long hobbles from around my ankles. They had made movement difficult, but not impossible. With them gone, I could move much faster. His eyes lingered upon the metal-laced rope around my wrists, but he made no gesture to remove it. Better, he asked. A little. I stretched my legs out, walking a few steps. Let's go. Bella, something else is going on here, Edward mumbled. Jake. Jake bounded over, looking like a guard dog ready to attack. Jake, we have a major problem. Esme and Carlisle aren't picking up their phone. Do you have any idea where they went? Did Rosalie and Emmett mention anything? Jake tilted his head and then shook it. No. Edward thinned his lips thoughtfully. We're on the trail of the Volturi. We don't know where Renesmee or Esme and Carlisle are. We haven't found traces of any of them. This is getting out of hand. Let's keep going, I said grimly. The Volturi ruined Nahuel and Hillen's home, and Hillen is with them. They have no qualms about doing whatever they want. Jake ran until I couldn't see him anymore. I heard him come back as a human. This sucks, Jake said, his voice a growl. We're going to find Renesmee, not some leech. I don't care about the half-vamp's relative. I want Renesmee back. It's pretty obvious the Volturi are up to their eyeballs in whatever this turns out to be, I said firmly. We're going on. Go ahead. Nobody's stopping you. Jake swept his hand in a grand gesture. Have a great time. Think of it as a vacation. In the meantime, I'm going for Renesmee. He turned and was gone before I could utter a sound. Just as well, Edward commented. We're already down my parents and daughter. The son-in-law-to-be might as well jump on the bandwagon. I reached for his hand and dragged him toward the scent trail. Let's keep going. We walked for what seemed like an eternity. I was grateful for the lack of available blood within my body. The enormous insects in the jungle avoided us. I could hear the hum of life underscoring the minute whispering of the wind through the leaves and plants. In my previous life, I would have tripped multiple times when traveling through the forest. I would have bumped my arm on trees or scraped my skin. Fallen. Gotten dirt in my eyes. Gotten confused as to the way. Here, I was part of nature and yet separated. Edward's hand on my arm broke my reverie. He pointed down, and we melted into the foliage. I lifted my head, trying to see. He pushed my head back down. It was only then that I heard the voices. Years of practice made Edward especially aware of others. His keen hearing and sharp eyesight seemed to have been honed with time. I concentrated fully on the scene before me. 12, maybe 13 random Volturi lay ahead of us. A semicircle centered around someone I couldn't see. You will be punished for his tardiness, a thin, reedy voice said. I looked to Edward with wide eyes. I'd know that voice anywhere. Jane. Pa and Jane. I grimaced. A woman's cry broke through the jungle noises. She sounded as if she were in intense pain. Pain, Jane said, a smile in her voice. I cringed as the woman's wail grew. I remembered, faintly, the time that Edward had been under Jane's magic. I looked to Edward and mouthed the word. Shield. He shook his head, his eyes narrowing. Jane, that is enough, another voice said. The wail trailed off. Very well, Jane sighed. He should be along within the next day or so. He knows what will happen if he fails to deliver her. We all know what will eventually happen, the other voice said cheerfully. We shall have it all, dear one. I lifted my head in time to see Alec kiss Jane on the cheek, caressing her hair. Gag. Time to move, Alex said, summoning the troops. His men lifted the woman to her feet. Her sobs, dry and yielding no tears, tore at me. I could have helped her. I could have saved her from the torture. And yet I hadn't. If I saw them torture her again, I wouldn't be able to do it then, either. Because to do it would mean certain defeat and certain death to some, if not all, of my family. And that was a price I wouldn't pay. Renesmee. The metal rope on my wrists chafed. I felt it with each step, yet dared not complain. It was much harder to keep my balance. Nahuel knew that, could see it with his own eyes. If my choices were to be drugged or be uncomfortable, my decision was obvious. Things could be so much worse. We bumped along, rushing toward some unseen goal. Nahuel glanced toward me frequently. I saw the worry and frustration on his face, but didn't comment. There was no need. He had no idea where my head was, but somehow he must have suspected I had a plan. Tricks up my sleeve. The truth was far more chilling. I had nothing. My plan consisted of showing up and seeing what happened once I arrived. The foliage was getting thick, but we weaved and dodged most of the largest items. We'd managed to travel to Panama or thereabouts, somewhere in Central America. Silently, the pointed looks Nahuel sent toward me increased until I wanted to shoot him a juvenile comment or two. I wanted to tell him to mind his own business. Yet somehow, the fact that he'd told me the truth about his predicament had felt like a breakthrough. It wasn't him against me anymore. It was us against the Volturi. His only family was being held against her will by the most dangerous group of vampires in existence, perhaps the most dangerous, except for my mother. I imagined Nahuel's aunt, free, and Nahuel's grateful look as they left me with the Volturi. Then I imagined my family rescuing me, the triumph on their faces as they overwhelmed their foes. Uncle Emmett's victory dance, the one he used for great touchdowns during football games. Aunt Rosalie's fussing once she saw me. The giant hug grandmother Esme would give, never wanting to let go. I sighed once again at Nahuel's scrutiny. Get it over with already, I said, slowing. His head whipped back to center as if he had never looked at all. Seriously, I can't take too much of this or I'll start throwing things. I rolled my arms in their sockets. Just get it out of your system already. He started with a slight cough. Nerves. I could see it in his face. What are you going to do to me? That threw me. What do you mean? Your mother is full of surprises. I have heard of her many talents and seen some of them. If you have been given such gifts. I snorted. I should be so lucky. My gifts rest in my palms. That's it. I can show people the truth, or rather the past truths I've seen, even people who don't want to know or don't want to see it. They have to believe me, because I don't know how to lie. It's obvious to anyone who sees. I shrugged. I can show you anything, as long as I know the answer or have seen what's happened with my own eyes. His eyes bored into mine even before I'd finished my sentence, and I saw there's something I'd hoped for. That is, until he was suddenly an ally. I wish to see, he said, gesturing to my bound hands. Show me what you see in your head. It will change nothing, yet I need to see. Bella. We were allowing the Volturi a very large lead. I could breathe again, however uneasily. I mentally threw myself under a train for the umpteenth time. Jane. Allowed to run wild and torture anyone she desired. Under my watch. I shuddered. Edward caressed my shoulder. He knew there weren't any words. The phone buzzed. My sense of urgency won over despair. The thoughts in my head whirled around Esme and Carlisle. I answered without hesitation. Yes. I asked. I hate playing cell phone, a female voice grumbled. Leah. I asked, incredulous. Yeah, she griped. So I'm stuck playing go-between with my oh-so-fearless leader and his leeches. It sucks. I'm supposed to relay the message that Jake saw the Volturi and continued on to try and pass them to find Renesmee. We figure it isn't a coincidence. What's he going to do about his scent? I asked. I heard a huff of air through the phone. He says they'll never know he went through, she mocked. As if he knows what way they'll travel. I think he's off his nut, personally, but he's never listened to me. So are you, Seth, Rosalie and Emmett on your way? I asked, watching Edward's face as he grew more impatient. Like a stick of dynamite. Dangerous. Rosalie and Emmett took off right after we found Emmett's legs, Leah said casually. We were lucky Jake threw them into dark areas. Though it's not like people around here aren't used to carnage, she said saucily. So they're on their way here? I asked. I guess, Leah said breezily. Seth was going to chase after the two of them, but we lost their scent for a while. I found your scent, but Seth's off goodness knows where right now. He's pretty far north based on what he's said, but I'm not sure. Stupid boys. Disgust poured through the phone line like a toxic fog. So since the little bloodsucker told me to carry a phone. Wait, Alice told you to carry a phone with you. I must have nearly screeched, because Edward ripped the phone from my hand. Tell me what's going on, he demanded into the receiver. We waited, eyes locked, as he heard Leah's story. His tension never ceased, and if possible, it increased. Watch your grip, I said gently as small cracks appeared on the phone's plastic cover. He closed his eyes briefly and nodded, loosening his grip slightly. He fired some questions into the phone and then hung up. So, I asked, allowing him the opportunity to speak. Seth followed another trail, he stated. She said she figures it must be important, but he was vague about it. Jake's hoping to pass the Volturi and cut Nahuel and Renesmee off before they're anywhere close to them. Edward's Adam's apple bobbed, as if in a spasm. What are we doing next? I asked, holding my head high. His eyes softened considerably. I love you, sweetheart. Jake's doing his best right now to keep up with the situation from his end. Alice and Jasper, his voice broke off. Don't know about everything yet, I finished. The phone was already out, dialed, and to his ear before I'd finished my sentence. Jasper, it's time to end this thing, he said, finality in his voice. Renesmee, are you sure? I asked. You really want me to show you what I'm thinking, feeling, everything? He closed his eyes for a second and nodded, lips pursed. I raised my eyebrows, thinking. Was this a good idea? I guess I don't really have a reason not to, I said slowly. You really want to see what's in my head? In answer, he glanced at my wrists and back at my face. He reached around to the bag he always wore on his back and pulled out a small item. Within seconds he had used it like a saw to cut through the metal rope around my wrists. He shrugged. If you run I will catch you, he said half-heartedly. I won't run, I promised. I lifted my hands in a silent question. He lowered his head in anticipation. We had inches between our faces. He was an attractive man. I studied his features with interest. High cheekbones, wide eyes, a straight nose. I thought of how he must see me and began to blush. Hair full of random desert items, pine sap and dirt. I knew there was a layer of grit on my cheek from when I'd been tackled. I shook my head, trying to clear the self-deprecating thoughts. I must look hideous, disgusting. He'd pitied the poor half-human enough to tell her the plan, because she looked so pathetic. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to breathe. Maybe that would calm me down. I felt a hand on my chin. Two strong fingers tilted my head up until our eyes met. His warmth melted my resolve, and I felt tears come to my eyes. Show me, he said. I lifted my palms to his face and gently laid them on his cheeks. Images rushed forward. I felt the sensation, so comically reminiscent of water flowing through my hands. I felt Nahuel shudder under my touch and wondered what startled him. Perhaps the mental pictures, perhaps the flow of energy, there was no way to know. His movement interrupted my concentration momentarily. I pulled away from him, but his hands reached to hold mine to his skin. I felt his large hands, rough against my skin. The hands of a man who physically worked for everything he had. The tiny indentations of his fingerprints grasped me, holding me to him. I squeezed my eyes shut and thought of my family. I thought of Nahuel's aunt, the Volturi's prisoner. Nahuel's hands slid over mine in a slow caress, and he wrapped his fingers around mine. He lowered my hands from his face and steadily gazed into my eyes. I will keep you safe. He squeezed my hands, and I ducked my head, embarrassed. Once again, he lifted my chin. This time Nahuel's fingers combed gently through my curls. And you remain beautiful. Do not think otherwise. Bella, I just wanted to go home. Gather all my family, including the wolves, and go back to the place where I felt safe. See my home, a cozy cottage where life didn't consist of running and preparing to fight. Where the worst part of my day might be Emmett teasing me about when I was human. I sighed, shaking the water out of my hair. It seemed like ages since we'd started out on this wild goose chase. The Volturi were leaving a clear trail, but it was anyone's guess where to. You'd think the weather would let up a little, I grumbled. Even thought the water wasn't affecting my body temperature or comfort at all, it annoyed me. The sheer volume of it was overwhelming. It drizzled, dripped, and splattered from everywhere. Apparently Edward was used to life on the run. He'd taken off his shirt, climbed a nearby ridge and stared off into the distance through the trees. The time dragged on as we waited for something to happen. Alice and Jasper were reportedly closing in, losing, and closing in on Renesmee and Nahuel. Alice's exasperation was only matched by Jasper's determination. Leah, Emmett and Rosalie were nearly here, at least according to their frequent phone calls. I wanted normalcy. I wanted to scream. Breathe, Bella, I whispered. I knew Edward could hear me. He probably wondered when the aliens had abducted his wife and left me in her place. Impatient, grouchy, annoyed by virtually everything, a soft whirl of air was the only warning of Edward's presence. I was used to it by now and didn't flinch. Don't underestimate the sneakiness, I said, quoting an Adam Sandler movie. Renesmee had gone through an Adam Sandler phase during her teenage rebellion. He grinned in reply. If I weren't so well behaved, I might display my dominance in some uncivilized way. His saucy gaze connected with various parts of my anatomy. Bad vampire, I purred, winking. His arm reached toward me, and just as suddenly, pulled away. They're here, he stated simply. My senses took over and I became a predator. I scouted, sniffing the air. Prowling. It's fine, Edward soothed. It's Emmett, Rosalie, and Leah. I relaxed from the crouch, shaking out my muscles. Old habit, I sighed, looking through the greenery. Emmett was the first one I saw. Leah was the first one I smelled. The dog scent was overwhelming, to say the least. If my eyes could water, they would. Single quote. She's pungent, isn't she? Edward asked, his voice soft and low. I snorted, but so did Leah. Then the growling started. She heard you, didn't she? I asked Edward, barely moving my lips. He nodded in reply. Leah ducked behind a tree to phase. She went from growling to griping in a matter of milliseconds. Where do you get off judging the way I look or smell? She asked with a sniff. There's no way in the world I'd ever trade my smell for yours. You smell like the remains from kids on Halloween who've thrown up all their candy. It's sickly sweet, beyond disgusting. She finished her diatribe with a sneer. Oh, Leah, you're so right, Rosalie said sarcastically. We'd much rather smell like worms and rotting compost than vanilla and cinnamon. Really? She rolled her eyes. Emmett stepped between Leah and Rosalie. His face betrayed his amusement. Ladies, he began. There are plenty of things about vampires and werewolves that are different. The important thing is finding out who's the strongest. Anyone up for naked mud wrestling? Rosalie smacked him on the back of the head before I could react. Good shot, Leah commented dryly. Was it like that the whole way here? I asked. Worse, Rosalie informed. Wow, and I thought waiting was bad. Emmett really had a fixation with naked wrestling. Mud, jello, he wouldn't leave it alone. Emmett is little better than a vampire Neanderthal, Leah complained. He could get a job on commercials or something. Emmett scoffed, then smiled good-naturedly. True, he said, relenting. So what are we going to do now? Rosalie intoned, breaking up the action. Renesmee's gone. Carlisle and Esme are Mia. Jasper and Alice are tracking someone who's obvious, even though the trail is getting more faint every day. What do you mean? I asked sharply. Well, Rosalie stammered. It's almost like he wanted to be followed at first, then he changed his mind. It seems like the syringes aren't as frequent, either. Where did you hear this? I demanded. Alice hasn't said anything about it, I trailed off. Edward had spoken to Alice for the remainder of the conversation last time. Not me. I turned to Edward, feeling a surge of anger. Why didn't you tell me? He shrugged, looking away. Are you trying to tell me that even with all of our available manpower, there's a chance we won't find her? Edward simply looked at me, his eyes full of sympathy, compassion, and a burning expression I hadn't seen in a long time. We have the Volturi to contend with, as well as a vampire who grew up within this forest. I'm not sure of anything right now. Believe me when I tell you I'll fight until my last breath for her. We just have to get used to the idea we might be looking for a long time. Renesmee. I ducked my head, ashamed at the transparent nature of my gift. Nahuel reached for my hand and brought the back of it to his lips. I winced at his obvious attempt to make me feel better. You're just being nice, I mumbled. Certainly not, he stated seriously. If you think your beauty is based entirely on cleanliness, or that I am superficial in my attraction to you, be assured you are mistaken. I scrunched my eyebrows in confusion. Was he seriously interested in me? I scooted away from him, realizing our proximity was too close for comfort. His eyes never moved, his soft smile never wavered. This is I swallowed dryly, desperate to find words. He looked away, the smile fading. I apologize for my forward behavior. His eyes darted back to mine, then away. I hated the way that simple sentence tore at me. He had been shoved into this uncomfortable situation just as surely as I. Victimized. His only family was a hostage. At least my family was free and unharmed. He, too, must feel very alone right now. Nahuel, I stated, feeling a little breathless. Nahuel, he closed his eyes and thinned his mouth. His lips were mesmerizing. Even when he stretched his mouth to its limit, his full lower lip refused to change shape. I couldn't help myself. I stared, fascinated, interested in a way I'd never been before. He pounced. He reached for me, intensity burning in his eyes. His hands snaked around me, one around my back, the other around my head. A warm, sweet mouth with soft lips met mine. I felt him before I saw. He wanted me. His innermost thoughts called to me all too clearly. I was more beautiful in his eyes than I could possibly ever hope for in real life. Inside his head, all of my flaws disappeared. Inside his head, I was lovely, sweet, sensitive, unique. The thoughts he shared stunned me. He truly cared for me. In return, I tentatively reached a palm up toward his face. He encouraged me, picturing my hand on his cheek. If he could share, I could, too. I'd never been kissed. The knowledge stunned him. I sighed, pulling away. Rather, I tried to pull away. His grip tightened and a growl emanated from his throat. I couldn't help but smile a little, enjoying the new sensations and feelings. He wanted to kiss me. He wanted to touch me. His lips moved against mine, creating a delicious need deep in my core. A clear image of pleasure popped into my mind. Nahuel was enjoying this. He questioned why I'd never been kissed, but I had no answer for him. Perhaps it was because my father could hear a suitor's intentions a mile away. Perhaps it was because Jacob was always around, ready to scare off potential boyfriends. Jake was my best friend, a confidant. I could tell him anything and expect his full attention. He was a strange sort of soulmate when you thought about it. He rarely stayed away for more than a few hours at a time. I'd never known anyone like him. Nahuel growled again. I couldn't help but be amused. Nahuel was kissing me, after all. It wasn't like he had to worry about any competition. I saw, in his head, a queue of men all waiting to snatch my attention away from our kissing forms. His confidence in me ignited a thrill. That someone could see me in that way stunned me beyond anything I could imagine. We must have kissed for an eternity. Perhaps it was only a moment. I only know that when he finally pulled away, I felt empty inside. I saw the moment his cheek absorbed that feeling. I looked at him with hollow eyes, and he gently pressed his lips against mine, each kiss showing me he felt the same regret as I. "You're innocent," he said gently. I pulled my hand away from his face. "Is that such a bad thing?" I asked, searching his eyes for an answer. "You don't have to worry about ex-boyfriends chasing after you. No, simply an overprotective shapeshifter with his pack, and a coven of 8 vampires who care very much for you." He looked me over in appreciation. I wondered what he could possibly see that was so fascinating. "We need to move on," he said abruptly. Instantly, it was as if a wall came down. His face grew blank. He stood, reached for his bag, then stretched his hand down for me. I stood and followed him wordlessly, more confused than I'd been before. "Bella, so you knew this was happening?" I asked Edward, angry. He looked away, keeping his focus aimed into the woods. He strode away from Leah and I, ignoring us. "What's going on?" I called after him in frustration. Dangerously close to whiny. I wanted to scream. "Pray tell," Leah mocked. "Could you find someone else to torture?" I asked, nearly at a snarl. Preferably far away from me. "'Fraid not," she said matter-of-factly. "Orders are orders, no matter how stupid they are." "Did Jacob seriously give one of those alpha commands?" I asked, taken aback. She shrugged. "When it comes to Nessie, he doesn't mess around." She reached around her neck and scratched. "I'm so sick of mosquitoes. They don't bug me when I go wolf, but as soon as I'm in human form, it's like I have a sign above my head. Eat me." Emmett walked over, eyes alight, looking like he'd just won the lottery. "Don't even say it," Rosalie snapped. Emmett sighed and shook his head. "You take away my fun," he said mournfully. "I try to keep you civilized." "It's a never-ending process," she said. "Focus," Leah grumbled. "Can't you vamps concentrate on anything?" Emmett opened his mouth and shut it quickly when he noticed Rosalie's hand rise toward his head. "So what's really happening out here?" I asked. "Nobody in particular. My daughter's missing and I'm stuck on an extended camping trip. I feel like my life has taken a nosedive." I sat on the ground and leaned against a tree. Leah nodded toward Edward. "He's staying awfully quiet. Maybe you better discuss this stuff with him. Edward's that moody, poetic type. Personally, I can't for the life of me figure out why you like him, but he's probably got a redeeming quality or two hiding in that excessively moosed hair of his." I cleared my throat unnecessarily, glaring. All right, Leah said, backing away with her palms raised. "Got it. You love him, can't live without him, whatever." She rolled her eyes theatrically. Edward could hear everything we said, but he'd stayed out of the conversation. Strange. Edward really hadn't said too much lately. Come to think of it, he hadn't responded at all to me even a minute ago. I marched up to him ready to demand an explanation. "You knew about Alice and Jasper losing their trail. You knew and didn't tell me. How could you do that? You took the phone and didn't let me finish talking to Alice. Were you afraid of what she'd say?" He wouldn't even look at me. "Renesmee, we started out in a regular run. Fast for a human, barely moving for a vampire. Nahuel picked up the pace gradually until we were in a straight-out run. Somehow the pace became more and more frenzied the longer we ran." Nahuel looked over at me apologetically. We continued onward. He pushed our speed until there was no way I could go any faster. "Hurry," he urged. I suddenly felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. We weren't running toward something. We were running away. I'd already pushed my body to the breaking point. Was the Volturi coming after us? If they were, what was he running from? My only guess was that I should have still been tied up like a prisoner. That would have been a problem no matter what, though. Maybe there was danger here in the south I didn't know about. A chilling thought occurred to me. Where were the warring covens Jasper warned me about? Where was Maria? I couldn't smell the danger yet. Suddenly, though, Nahuel's eyes wild. He urgently waved me forward, pushing me on. Then he reversed direction. My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't help it. I needed to stay with him. So what if he'd only kissed me once? So what if he'd started out by kidnapping me? He was my kind, a unique person, half vampire and half human. I turned around in time to see him get tackled. I couldn't help it. I screamed. I couldn't decide whether to run back to him or continue on our projected path until I, too, was caught. But I couldn't leave him. But I wanted to stay. But I felt such a strong pull toward him. The next move was taken out of my hands when a pair of small hands grasped my shoulders. I nearly flipped in midair, but the hands stilled me. "It's okay, it's me," Alice's voice said softly. "We have him. You don't have to worry anymore. We're here." I looked into the snarling tangle of male limbs and tried to see what Alice saw. "It's looking like a toss-up to me. I think Nahuel can take care of himself." She laughed, an edge to the beautiful sound. "Maybe in this fight, but not in other regards." She looked me over with an intense gleam. "Keeping busy, aren't we?" She reached over and pulled a twig out of my hair. I groaned. "What did you see?" Alice ticked off the things on her fingers. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe you being a prisoner, then running away, getting tackled and falling on your face. You don't know how much you remind me of your mother." I chuckled. "Mom used to." Alice held up a warning finger. "I'm not through. Then, I saw him tell you about his aunt, free you, then kiss you." She put her hand down. "Now I'm done." I inhaled sharply. "So what do I think?" Alice's voice reached up toward the stratosphere. I think, dear, you've got a serious case of Stockholm Syndrome. I looked back at the men still fighting on the ground. You think I've developed feelings for Nahuel because I've become sympathetic toward him? I tried to think rationally, but rational thought wouldn't come. You went past feelings about 4 hours ago. You've moved on to a very specialized area of human psychology. Kissing, Renesmee. Really? Alice's eyebrows shot to the middle of her forehead as she chastised me. I'm not a huge fan of you being happily ever after with a dog for a number of reasons, but this, she pointed to the struggling Nahuel, is madness. You know why he took me in the first place, I said. It's not like he volunteered for this. You think he wouldn't jump at the chance to go after a woman exactly like him who doesn't happen to be his sister? Alice asked. Wow, Edward and Bella needed to enroll you in public school after all. Could you really be that naive? Is Jasper gonna rip him apart or something? I asked to change the subject. I don't think we're built the same way as vampires. Maybe you better call Jasper off of him. She waved her hand dismissively. Jasper knows how I feel about Nahuel. He'll do what he needs to do. I'm just glad we got you back. I started toward the men, but was pulled back. Alice. I turned around to face her. Don't interfere with this, she warned. I pulled away anyway. Rather, she released me. Jasper, please let him go, I said, exasperated. If you let him go, he's not going to attack anyone. No response. Jasper, I said, a little more forcefully. Nothing. Jasper, I shouted. Nahuel stopped moving, but Jasper continued. He wrenched Nahuel's arms behind his back and jerked Nahuel's head down, leaving his neck exposed. Thanks, Jasper said, looking more breathless than I'd ever seen a vampire. I know you two have something going on, but Renesmee, you're just going to have to understand when I kill him. Turn around or something. Bella, say something, I said, desperate. I can't, he said, turning to me. His expression was regretful, his eyes severe. I was so confused and angry all at the same time. Nobody could hear my thoughts. It wasn't like the Volturi had an edge on us there. Seriously, Edward, I said angrily. We've been married for 7 years, and that's all you have to say. That you can't say anything. He stared off into the distance. Pensive. Edward, look at me, I begged, bewildered. I don't know what's going on here, but I've always trusted you in the past. Is there something you have to keep from me? He didn't even turn. I'm not keeping anything from you. With that, he strode into the foliage. Sure, it's pretty clear you're telling me everything, I snapped. I heard a noise behind me and twisted around in time to see Leah duck her head behind a tree. You can't see me, she deadpanned. I glared at Leah, feeling a lot less generous toward her than usual. What? I snarled. I dunno, she said with a half smile. I just figure he was determined to kill himself when he thought you were dead. He saved your ass during the newborn scare. You had his kid. He wanted you enough to be with you for eternity. Maybe you could cut the guy a little slack. She gestured toward where Edward had walked. All of a sudden you're an Edward advocate. I retorted. And you're not, she shot back. You should be his strongest supporter, and you're over here bitching at me instead. She rolled her head on her neck. Maybe you should shut up and trust him. Rosalie and Emmett walked over to us, watching the exchange. I don't know what's going on either, Rosalie said, frowning. I think we better go along with Edward and do what he says. He's usually right. I wouldn't question him too much. He'll talk when it's appropriate. Emmett slung his arm around Rosalie. He's so emo. Don't worry about it too much, Bella. We'll get Nessie back, go home, and be working on the cars in no time. He smirked and kissed Rosalie's cheek. We'll work on the inside of the BMW, too. The leather in the back seat doesn't polish itself. Rosalie reached around and smacked his rump. Behave. Leah began to shake. What's going on? I asked, alarmed. I'm not sure, but I have this bad feeling that I need to phase. She ran a few steps away and blended into the forest. A wolf howl was my only warning. Suddenly, everything was in chaos. Renesmee, stop, I cried. Don't kill him. Don't interfere with this, Jasper growled. He turned Nahuel's head in a very awkward position, readying him for the final death. Either you let him go, or I'll take matters into my own hands, I yelled. Nessie, honey, It's so sweet that you look after Nahuel, but he's many years older than you. Alice gazed at me, pity clear in her amber eyes. He's much more prepared to deal with a situation than you are. Nahuel could have come to us and asked for help. Instead, he kidnapped you. He lost all sympathy when he shut us out. His only close relative was taken by the Volturi, I said angrily. That's a good enough reason to use me as a bargaining chip. Could you please let him go now? I asked Jasper, hoping I was still on his good side. No, Jasper said, concentrating on Nahuel. Renesmee, I can't emphasize enough how much you should stay out of this. I turned to Alice, keeping Nahuel in my peripheral vision. Alice, this is important to me. I haven't known him for a long time, but I've seen inside his head. Trust me, we can work together if you let us. I walked to Jasper and Nahuel. Surprisingly, Jasper looked resigned to the idea of letting Nahuel live. Jasper's hold was just tight enough to hold Nahuel now, and Nahuel wasn't fighting him. Nahuel's eyes locked on mine. I could see a spark of something in their depths, but his eyelids closed before I could figure out what it was. It would be better for everyone if you just let Jasper take care of him, Alice said matter-of-factly. You can't be serious, I said, appalled. I was taught that we Cullens are always against bloodshed. We don't know if any blood will be shed in this case, she said, looking curiously at Nahuel. We've never had to deal with a hybrid before. Second of all, this is counted under special circumstances. We aren't doing anything wrong. Alice glanced up at me coolly. Please let this one go. We'll have a more positive outcome in the long run. Sorry, Alice, Jasper said, lips tight. Nessie's not going to give in. There's no way Alice could definitely know the outcome with us involved, I said, eyes narrowing at her. You can't see me, Alice hissed, obviously frustrated. Can't see you very well, she clarified. She gestured toward Nahuel. You didn't need to share that aloud. I trust him enough that I don't care how much he knows. I spun to face Jasper, begging once more. There's no need to kill him. I trust him, please, I begged. Jasper motioned to Alice. I always defer to her. She knows what's best. My opinion doesn't come into play at all. I complained. I feel like I'm in the middle of a ping-pong game. Seriously, let him go. You can kill him later if you need to. I prayed there would be no need for killing at all. Jasper dropped his hands from Nahuel at once. I know a lot of ways to kill another person. Hybrid or not, I can kill you faster than you could think to fight back. Nahuel didn't wiggle, didn't change position. As a matter of fact, he didn't move at all. Better safe than sorry, Jasper said, replacing his hold on Nahuel. I can feel his tension in waves. What does he have to do to prove he's not dangerous? Look at him. He's being careful because he's afraid you're going to kill him. Wait a minute, I took a breath, then whirled toward Jasper again. So if you could kill him so fast, why did you hesitate the first time around? I made an apologetic face at Nahuel but continued on. You could have avoided this question and answer session. I'm grateful you didn't kill him, I'm just curious to find out why. The reason isn't important, Jasper assured me. If it's so unimportant, you should have no problem telling me, I pressed. Alice threw her hands in the air. You were just like your mother. With that, Alice's phone began to buzz. She eyed her pocket with disdain, then reached in and grabbed the device. With one smooth motion she opened the back and disconnected the battery. Oops, she said with a sigh. Unfortunately, we don't get service here. That was your mother, wondering where you are. We can't give her bad news like this. Alice nodded toward Nahuel and I. Bad news like this? I asked, livid at the concept. That what? You were involved in trying to destroy someone who has every right to be alive. That I've found someone besides Jacob who cares for me. I'll have you know that Jacob has never once made a move on me. He's always telling me how perfect we are for each other and how we were made for each other, but then, nothing. I'm not made of stone, I barked. Then I backtracked. Beg your pardon. I didn't mean it like that. I accept your apology, Alice said quickly. No need to explain, Jasper growled. Can we please get on with this? Patience, sweetheart, Alice soothed. It was my turn to growl. Set him loose, or I'll come after you myself. I'm giving you 20 seconds. Alice sighed. Seriously, Nessie, You have to know by now that ultimatums never got anyone anywhere. 15 seconds, I stated. Do you think she'll actually do it? Jasper asked, his expression impressed. Alice closed her eyes and was very still for a moment. Yes, said. 10 seconds, I nearly sang. Then I crouched, preparing to spring. Alice looked thoroughly annoyed. Let him go. Really? Jasper asked begrudgingly. When Alice nodded in assent, he snarled his disgust. Fine. We already knew it would end like this, but I'd hoped for a different outcome. Nahuel's eyes were nearly luminous with their hope. Jasper loosened his stranglehold. Welcome to the family, Jasper said sarcastically. For now, Alice said, her voice a low melody. We'll see what happens when we catch up with the dogs. Bella. It was amazing how, even as a vampire, I couldn't always catch on to what was going on around me. The world was moving in slow motion. Wolves were everywhere. Carlisle, Seth, and Esme led the charge as they entered our territory. Directly after the wolves were vampires. Lots and lots of vampires. Nearly everyone from the first Volturi fight walked, jogged, or ran into the area. Esme, I cried. Carlisle. I was instantly hugging Esme, who searched the grounds. Where's Edward? Something he knows is making him quiet, I commented. Leah, who happened to be nearby, gave me an approving half-smile. He's not talking to me. Carlisle's face became a grim mask. We always trust Edward. It's imperative that we listen to whatever he says, even if his speech is limited. Or non-existent, I retorted. He's so quiet, you'd think he were mute. It's ridiculous. Esme smoothed my hair back, sighing. It might seem strange or make you unhappy right now, but whatever he's doing will be for the best in the long run. The Amazons looked delighted to see everyone again. Tanya, Kate, and Garrett stood near Rosalie and Emmett. They'd obviously reconnected after a few months away from each other. A small vacation to Canada every few months let me get to know our Canadian cousins very well. There was constant friendly competition in many regards. Garrett had an easier time restraining himself than Jasper when it came to human blood. They'd become friends, since each had unique skills and had fight experience. They were even built in a similar fashion. That had me longing for Alice and Jasper. Renesmee. Jacob. I lifted my face skyward in frustration. Have you heard from Jacob at all? I asked the wolves, desperate for news. Alice. We haven't been able to get a hold of her yet. Her phone is messed up and possibly broken. Emmett snorted. If I know Alice, she's got something cooked up. I'll bet she did something to the phone on purpose. Why? I asked, gearing up for a fight. She was doing her best to convince me she had no need for our input in this match. Why does Alice do anything? Emmett replied. We won't know anything until the pixie and the emo start talking. Renesmee. Jasper, I know you can feel what we're feeling, I said cautiously. You have to know this isn't easy for me, but you also have to take his feelings into account. He's not dangerous. He's not about to run off or hurt you. This whole situation is ridiculous. I walked to Nahuel and sighed. It's okay. He's letting you go for now. Let's go hunt or something. Jasper's eyes widened, and he flared his nostrils. Not for people, I said, annoyed by his lack of faith. He agreed to eat like we do when I'm around. I need to talk to you, Renesmee, Jasper said, never turning his back toward Nahuel. It's important. I sighed again and began to walk toward the trees. Jasper followed a few feet behind. What is it? I asked impatiently. You said he's trustworthy, Jasper began. Sure, I said slowly. That's just it. I don't feel that from him. I feel extreme tension, very little confidence, and a strong need to fight. That's a very dangerous combination. I don't trust him at all. If he were to get too close to Alice at this point, he broke off his sentence and growled. I can't guarantee he would live. What are you saying? I asked, growing defiant. He didn't plan for the Volturi to kidnap his aunt. He did what he had to do in order to save her life. He doesn't want to turn me over to them. I glared at Jasper. Nahuel is a good guy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a syringe. What about these? Did he have to use drugs on you the whole time? I shrugged. I wasn't going to go quietly. Jasper's piercing caramel eyes stared into my soul. Renesmee, you need to listen to me. Nahuel's not like a Cullen or any of the people, he smiled, or creatures you know. But seriously, His expression sobered. I'm sensing something from him that I can't figure out. He might be conflicted, but he should see us as allies. Maybe you forgot about the last few minutes, I said bitterly. Hands around neck. Whose were those? Oh, yeah, those were yours. Who threatened to kill him numerous ways. That was you, too. Jasper looked intently into my eyes. I did that for your safety. He's dangerous, Nessie. Don't forget that. I'm letting him live so you can see what kind of man he is. Alice skipped into view, a shrewd look on her face. Some girls go for motorcycle riders, some girls go for kidnappers. She reached over to touch Jasper's arm, her expression sympathetic. You tried. You said she wasn't going to change her mind. I hoped you would still have luck talking her out of keeping him. Alice glanced at Nahuel like he was a mangy dog. I just wish I could clearly see you half-breeds so I'd know what's going to happen. Right now I can't see anyone, so I guess the dog's caught up with Bella and Edward. I'm confused and now you have me curious, I said. What's going on with everyone else? Carlisle and Esme were going to look for backup. The dogs were all coming down here to protect Jake and, by extension, you. She curled her lip in disgust. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad they're helping. I just can't stand the smell. She thought for a moment. They were looking for other vampires to support their cause. I don't know who's coming, but I can guess based on who miraculously disappears. What about my mom and dad? I asked, more urgent now. Alice looked at Jasper. They were going out on their own after they flew down here. Last time I heard from them, they were all over the place, deciding who went where. All I heard was, blah, blah, blah. They'll show up when they're going to show up. Certain events are really clear, but anything regarding wolves is up for grabs. So you can't see hardly anything right now? I asked, surprised. No, she answered. Frankly, I'm tired of it. I started to see around you as you grew up, and I can even have visions about you when you aren't next to me, but it's gotten worse with him here. She gestured at Nahuel. If he'd only. Nahuel's not going anywhere, I said between my teeth. Whatever. Alice gritted her teeth and spun away from me. Jasper, keep an eye on him. I heard what you said about killing him if he goes near me, so I'm tempted to walk by him, I growled under my breath, and she stopped her sentence abruptly. Fine. If he goes near me though, I hope you'll protect me. It was Jasper's turn to growl. Nahuel and I are going hunting, I said briskly. You can trust him with me. If I were going to be dead, it would have happened already. I'll see it if they go too far, Alice said soothingly to Jasper. I could use some time away from them anyway. I walked to Nahuel and extended my hand. His answering smile could have eclipsed the sun. Bella, I paced. Immature, futile, and a waste of time, but it made me feel better in some odd way. Seth loped over to me, a grin on his face. You seem unhappy. Relax. Everything's going to be fine. We've had some tough times, but we'll get through. I glared at him. Seriously, Seth, you have got to ditch this whole, chipper, persona. It's been cute in the past, but it's not helping right now. He laughed. You're always so worried whenever a fight comes around. It'll be fine. We've got tons of shapeshifters now, and Carlisle and Esme found friends in different places. It was cool when they got that phone tree-like communication system in place. That was so cool. Glad we could please you, I grumbled. I wanted to move, so I began tapping my toe against the ground. Impatient as ever, Seth chuckled. Don't worry, everything's going well. Jake's been watching Alice and the rest of them for about 20 minutes. He says Alice and Jasper were talking to Renesmee and that she's not hurt. She's not tied up anymore, either. I guess he saw Nahuel looking guilty and sitting by himself under a tree. When anything important comes up, we'll have news right away. I hugged Seth. I grinned. I wanted to cry. My non-beating heart nearly burst from my chest. I can't honestly say I felt anything from my heart, but I knew the sentiment was there. I have to tell Edward, I sang, skipping toward the last direction he'd been walking. Let him go for now, Seth said, the smile slipping from his face. Last I saw, he seemed really upset. Where did you see him go? I asked, my mind racing. Maybe I could see his reaction to the news before he edited what came to mind. We ran right past him on the last patrol, Seth said, frowning. It was maybe 10 miles northwest of here. He barely smiled when he heard the news about Renesmee. 10 miles away, I asked, stunned. Yeah, we have enough people we can expand our patrols to pretty immense proportions, Seth said proudly. He had no idea that my shock came from the fact that Edward was so far away in such a short amount of time. I'm going to find him, I said, feeling choked. No, Seth said, his eyes wide. Something's going on. Everyone can feel it. It's better to stay in the group where we can protect you. Renesmee. We walked in silence, our hands so close they were nearly touching. The secretive smile on his face lit up every time I glanced his way. We'd been walking for a few minutes and hadn't tried to hunt at all. It felt as though we were merely avoiding Jasper and Alice instead of looking for food. In a way, we were. I couldn't help but answer his grin the next time I saw it grace his face. What? I asked, giggling. Is there something on my face? His grin faltered. I didn't mean it like that, I said, exasperated. I know I've got stuff on my face and in my hair. I'm over it now, but what are you smiling about? We walked a little while into the forest, pushing aside the foliage. He stopped and faced me. The expression on his face was radiant. Nobody has ever given me the respect you did today, he said quietly. Thank you. I reached out for his hand, but he pulled it away. They were correct, though, he said, his expression dimming. I had no right to expect anything from you. The fact that you are willing to help me is more than I could ever hope for. But I began, confused. I have nothing but honorable intentions toward you, Nahuel said slowly. I will not show any other feelings. He avoided my eyes as he spoke again. I also will not make romantic overtures aimed at you. Is that the way you really feel? I asked, dazed. It is what the situation calls for. His speech was clipped. I walked forward, circling around his still form. I wasn't thirsty anymore. He followed me, and I sensed a large animal straight ahead, about a mile away. I could hear its heart thump. Share? I asked Nahuel, who looked at me with distaste. If that, he pointed ahead, smells interesting, I will consider it. We ran. My hunting and protecting instinct for prey was minimal. I didn't mind sharing. We gained upon the animal, and Nahuel jumped it from behind. We drained it quickly. The animal wasn't as large as I'd hoped, some sort of big cat. We sat next to the carcass, idly looking at the scenery around us. Nahuel's look of disgust was amusing. The animal had a unique flavor I, too, wasn't used to. I will try to live like you, Nahuel said, wiping his mouth. While you remain here, of course, he said quickly. It's fine. Don't pretend to like this, I commented. I don't prefer animal blood either. We sat in silence for a moment, left to our own thoughts. It's generous of you to change diets like this for me, I gestured toward the animal carcass. He looked away from the animal, away from me. It is something new and different. A challenge. I touched his face with my palm, letting him know that it was much, much more than that for me. Suddenly his lips were on me, and I could see into his head, too. Suddenly his lips were off me. I opened my eyes to see him dangling from the neck 3 feet above me. Held in place by Jacob Black. Bella. I was pacing. Again. This entire situation was absurd. My family was in separate places. My daughter wasn't where she should be. Edward was off on his own for some reason. I was grateful that Jasper and Alice had caught up to Renesmee. I was grateful that Renesmee was safe. I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Seth. For some reason, he'd taken it upon himself to be my personal babysitter. I turned to pace back the way I'd come, and saw Leah walking toward me. Great. Yet another person to deal with. Could you be any grouchier? Leah asked, looking cheerful. I scowled at her. Like you're ever in a better mood. I asked. You're always so sickeningly happy that seeing you act sour is like Christmas morning for me, she said lightly. I tightened my lips and turned to walk in the other direction. Of course she fell into step beside me. Everyone's safe. Just chill. She looked at me with mild amusement in her eyes. Easy for you to say, I snapped. You've never been a parent and never had a kidnapped daughter. I realized what I'd said and tried to backtrack. That came out wrong. I meant, oh, I get what you mean, she said harshly. You poor baby. To be stuck with a soulmate and a child. Having that child you care about unharmed and currently safe with relatives. To have that wonderful, caring husband help you through, Must be tough. She curled her lip and regarded me with a disgusted look on her face. I completely agree that it's so easy for me to talk. I regarded her carefully. Still no luck with imprinting. She scoffed bitterly. I'm more likely to fly. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. Fine, she said, shrugging me off. What are you looking at? She accused, looking at Seth. He looked away, chagrined. Leah, I know you're just trying to help, I said carefully. But shut up and mind your own business. She provided. You're more likely to fly. I concluded. Seth snickered before he could stop himself. She shot him a scathing look. How's that imprint of yours, Seth? Leah taunted. She turned back toward me. What I came to say is that maybe now would be a good time to talk. Seth's eyes grew large and he made a cutting motion across his throat, a motion clearly meant for Leah. She waved it off and took my arm. We'll need to step away from the peanut gallery, she said gingerly. I can't say that I wanted to walk with her, but Leah's offer was something to do. We walked a while before she stopped. Jake caught up with Jasper and Alice, she said bluntly. I sighed with relief. Finally, everyone's accounted for. She looked at me with raised eyebrows. Forget something. That Jake will kill the monster who took my daughter. I asked pleasantly. I was expecting no less. She said, avoiding my eyes. It's a tad more complicated than that. He. For a while there, some of you thought Nahuel and Renesmee were going to hunt Jacob. Renesmee. Jake. I gasped. Put him down. I scrambled to my feet and tried to loosen Jake's hold. He should be dead already, but I'm feeling generous because I found you alive. His teeth ground in his head. He never looked away from Nahuel. Jake, it's not what you think, I pleaded. Let him go, and then I'll explain why we were kissing. He slowly turned his head to face me. Why we were kissing. Not him kissing you, but you kissing each other. That's not what I saw. From what I saw, that punk kissed you. He turned once again to Nahuel. My generosity just ran out. No, I begged. I wanted him to kiss me. This isn't the first time it's happened. Last time I even asked him to kiss me. Last time. Jake scowled into Nahuel's face, lifted him higher, then dropped him. You can live for now. I suggest you come up with your last words just in case I change my mind. Nahuel collapsed on the ground and lay there. He didn't look up. I walked to Jake and shoved him on the chest as hard as I could. You are such a bully. I shouted. He was only trying to help his aunt. He didn't want to do it. Jake swallowed hard and lowered his voice. How does kissing you help his aunt? I'm sorry, Ness, but even if he seems like a good guy, he's already proven he isn't. Jake reached forward, tentatively touching my cheek. I leaned into the gesture, closing my eyes. You're a wonderful person, Jake. But Nahuel is, too. You just have to learn to trust him. I've known you my whole life and always trusted you. This time you have to trust me. I've gotten to know Nahuel during our time together. During the time he drugged and kidnapped you. During the time he brainwashed you, then kissed you. Yeah, he's a real Prince Charming, Jake supplied pointedly. There was no brainwashing involved, I said impatiently. Yeah, I get that, he said sarcastically. Just how great is he again? I growled in frustration. I'd just like to know one thing, Jacob said, aiming the statement at Nahuel. Jasper's the best tracker I know. I hate to say it, but he's even better than me. How did you lose him? Not once, but many times. Nahuel lifted his face skyward. I was given tools to help me. These included the drugs within the syringes he broke off when Jake's hand balled into a fist. I was told it would not injure her, he said fervently. If you wish to look at them, they are in my pack. He slowly took the bag from off his shoulders and handed it to Jake. Jake took the bag, but merely held it. I'm going to give this to Jasper right now. He barked at Nahuel. You're following us. He walked forward and I tagged behind obediently. I'm going behind a tree to phase, he said gently. You stay here if you want. He smiled in spite of himself. Feel free to come along if you really want. I rolled my eyes. I'll be waiting here. We followed the giant wolf back to where Alice and Jasper waited. Nahuel stayed silent the entire time. Jacob dropped the bag at Jasper's feet. The wolf looked at us pointedly, then walked behind a tree to phase. Hello, Jake, Alice said brightly. We weren't expecting you, but then again, I never am. Jake pointed to the bag. Whatever he used to make you guys lose his trail is in there. Jasper's lips pressed together, then he inspected the bag visually. Finally he gestured to Nahuel. You, he said, get whatever it is and show it to me. I rolled my eyes at him. Geez, Jasper, what do you think is in there, a hornet nest? I reached for the bag. Nahuel swiped my hand away. Bella, how is it more complicated? I growled. Jake caught up to them, but he also caught Nahuel and Nessie kissing. Aren't Alice and Jasper there with them? I asked, confused. They wouldn't let him do anything to her anymore. Jasper would kill him first. Too bad he didn't, Leah said under her breath. I glared at her. Jake caught them kissing, she said slowly, as if it took effort to make me understand. Not Nahuel kissing her, they were kissing each other. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I need to get to them now, I said urgently. I know you can find them using that weird, wolf-wide talent you guys have. May the force be with you, Leah said sarcastically. Yeah, I might have sci-fi senses and fantasy movie crap that I can do in real life. I can find them, but I'm not gonna. I stared at her in disbelief. If I did, she continued, Jake would, and I quote, serve my ears and paws on a platter. He said he'd do that to anyone who followed him. I was suddenly livid. Obviously Jake couldn't have foreseen these circumstances, or my deep need to be where Renesmee was. Talk to him and get permission, I insisted. Didn't mean couldn't, Leah said lightly. I meant wouldn't. Renesmee. Jasper scowled pointedly. You were saying. I looked from Jasper to Jake to Nahuel. Did I miss something? I asked him. Nahuel avoided my eyes. What are you hiding that I shouldn't find? You were fine with anyone else looking. You even let Jake carry the bag. It can't be that full, it only looks like a change of shirt and shorts. I snorted derisively. What's with the sudden change of heart when it comes to me? Nahuel suddenly looked deep into my eyes. His eyes never left mine as he reached into the bag and pulled out a bottle. Do not touch, he said softly, then placed it on the ground. He pulled out other items and laid them around the bag. This bag has my, how do you say, DNA imprinted upon it. There is a powder covering everything inside. If you should reach in, your DNA will contact the powder, causing harm. He looked down at his hands, folding them in front of his body. The response will only occur within the bag. After the air and sunlight or moonlight has touched the items for a moment, there is no more reaction. I gaped at him. What happens if someone else touches the powder within the bag? Inevitable deterioration, Nahuel whispered. Rotting. The powdered mold within causes leper-type symptoms in vampires. It is a Volturi secret. Interesting, Jasper said harshly. What else do you have in your bag of tricks? Nahuel sighed. Full steel syringes, he said, pointing to a still-closed metal and burlap bag. Scent eraser, he continued, aiming a finger at a larger burlap bag. Cutter, he said, gesturing toward the small two-saw he'd used to cut the metal rope from my wrists. Calling card with remote transmitter and global positioning system, he said carefully, as if required to learn the sentence verbatim. Jake lifted a fist as if to smash the device. No, Nahuel said quickly. If you destroy it, one last signal will alert Jane. Jake growled but lowered his fist. This, he gestured toward what looked like tiny, one dynamite sticks, is a scent stick. You insert your own hair, light it, then throw it very hard away from where you travel. It will explode and leave a powerful smell of you behind. It does not, itself, contain a smell. He broke off and exhaled loudly. Is there anything in there besides the DNA powder we should worry about? Jasper asked. His eyes were trained on the first item Nahuel pulled out. The bottle. I'm guessing it isn't sunscreen, Jake said mockingly. Or water, Alice said lightly. Nahuel waited, his face blank. Suddenly his eyes held an apology, and he was directing his next sentence at me. Nahuel's voice was small when he spoke. I was told this contains a formula which, among other things, has fertility drugs within it. Bella, you enraged, I couldn't form any other words. There's not much I can do, Leah said, her voice unapologetic. This isn't how I plan to spend my week, you know. I have laundry piled to the ceiling at my apartment. I'd love to be eating little chocolate donuts for breakfast. I want to sleep on a real bed for a while. But we're off dealing with a sci-fi soap opera instead. I glared at her. She glared back. Thank you for coming to find my daughter, I said, backing down. I greatly appreciate you spending your valuable time helping us out. Yeah, whatever. Leah turned and walked a few steps away, then seemed to change her mind. She did a 180 and returned to Bella. You guys have something special, she whispered. Something some of us can only dream about. Something people pray for, kill for, and search the ends of the earth for. Don't ruin it. Trust him. Maybe he knows best after all. Maybe he's protecting both of you with what he knows. Renesmee, you are a sick creature, I spat at him. I looked at the bottle in front of him. It looked full and unopened. Looks could be deceiving, though. No way would I chance touching the thing. I took a breath, preparing myself. I needed to know. Did you ever use this on me? He simply stared. His expression remained apologetic. His eyes, hollow now, begged me for forgiveness. Is that why I kissed you? I asked, livid. Did I have some sort of hormone in me that made me want you? I began to pace. To think I tried so hard to be a good person and stick up for you. I wanted you to be innocent, caught up with a bad crowd. I wanted to fix the bad boy nobody believed in. I began to cry. I'm such a fool. Jake tried to follow me. Nessie, please. I turned directly into his hard body, hugging him for dear life. I looked into his sad face and knew his feelings at once. I touched his cheek, telling him my confusion, my self-loathing, my sadness. Jake tenderly swiped the tears from my cheeks, then hesitated. His eyes told me this would be the moment. He leaned down to kiss me. Fireworks. I kept my palm on his cheek, letting him know me inside and out. No secrets. His hands roamed my neck and back. They tangled in my hair. My other hand tentatively found his scalp. I massaged in what I hoped was a sensual manner. I couldn't help but remember the only other time I'd been kissed by a man. As soon as the memory entered my mind, Jacob's hands and mouth became frantic. Suddenly he was the whole world. Nothing mattered except his mouth on mine. He grunted his approval and held me tighter. Perhaps you two should get a room, Alice said, her voice carrying an edge. Maybe we should, Jacob breathed into my mouth. My thoughts swirled, incoherent. My glazed eyes couldn't see anything but his face. He somehow had the ability to smile brightly at something to my right. I looked. Nahuel sat, his head in his hands. Tear tracks streaked his face. Serves him right, I thought. Damn straight, Jake agreed, grinning. Bella, this wasn't happening. Bella, Leah's cry ripped through the forest. The world swam in front of my eyes. I was falling, helpless. It was as if suddenly I were drifting in the world between awake and asleep. Except I didn't get that feeling anymore. Bella, Seth's garbled voice, an eternity away, whispered to me. I couldn't respond, I could only stare, helpless. How is this happening? Leah's shaky voice said. She grasped my arms and laid me down gently. My words wouldn't come out. We were just talking, Leah stammered. I nodded once, then closed my eyes. It was too much work to keep them open. Someone's doing this to her, Leah said at the same time Seth said, do you feel it? Feel what? Leah asked. This is an attack, Seth's fierce words blasted through my body. He sounded energized, suddenly enraged and ready to battle. I opened my eyes. It's gone, Seth said, scanning the trees nearby. He lifted my head and cradled my body against his. I'd forgotten how warm the werewolves were. The heat scorched through me. I remember when we did this before, I said, smiling weakly. For Renesmee the first time around, he agreed. Seth turned me slightly. His stormy brown eyes blazed back at me. I protected you both before, and you could say I'm a little annoyed at whoever just did that to you. I stood up, using Leah's arm for support. So if that's an attack, wouldn't they have a scout watching to see what Bella's reaction would be? Leah said. The leaves nearest us suddenly stirred as Seth trembled, flew apart and disappeared. Renesmee. Don't worry, Jacob said soothingly as his hypnotic black eyes searched mine. We'll sort all this out. I'm sorry, I pleaded, mentally revisiting the struggle with Nahuel through the forests and desert. I rested both of my hands upon his cheeks, sharing everything. Something made his head jerk back suddenly, and his eyes widened. Nessie, we need to tie him up, he said. Where's the cord he used on you? I don't know, I said, searching helplessly. I spied Nahuel's bag and started toward it. Nahuel's hands were on my shoulders before I could take another step. No, he said, shoving me hard, pushing me backward. A snarl split the air, and suddenly I was on the ground. Jake and Nahuel were tangled in a heap near my feet. I scrambled backward on my palms, kicking the ground desperately with my heels to move further away. Alice was there in an instant helping me up. I blinked at her, dazed. I'd forgotten she was even there. The frantic kissing, the sudden fight, they'd stolen every thought of others from my head. There was a deafening cacophony through the trees. Jasper watched from the side, dodging back and forth as though ready to enter the fray should he see an opening. Nahuel refused to relent, but I feared for Jacob. Nahuel was many years older with much more experience. Ness Jacob's cry cut off suddenly. Nahuel was thrown backward as one very angry vampire picked him up and hurled him at a tree. I couldn't help myself. I dodged Alice, turning left instead of right as she saw what was about to happen. I reached Jacob just in time to realize Nahuel had crushed his throat. He gurgled, wheezed, and tried to breathe properly, without success. Bella. The world shook as vampires came tearing into the clearing. What the hell just happened here? Emmett's voice thundered through the space as he, Rosalie, and some random stragglers pounded over to us. Leah stood, obviously overwhelmed. Where's Carlisle? Leah asked, looking young and helpless. Someone called him and then he and Esme took off into the jungle, Rosalie said, stroking my hair. We'll have to handle this on our own. I'm fine, I promised. Where did they go? I tried to get up, but Rosalie and Emmett exchanged a look which made me pause. Where did they go? I asked again, this time pushing force into the question. We'll discuss that later, Rosalie said, rising. Right now, we need to figure out what just happened. I felt like I was falling asleep, I said. I was drowsy and everyone's voice sounded like they were underwater. I don't know what anyone else felt, Garrett said, stepping forward, but I felt a buzzing in my head and some sort of push away from this area. The others nodded their assent, but Leah shook her head. Sorry, but I think I missed the boat on that one, she said. I didn't feel anything, and I have no idea what happened. Bella is a shield, Rosalie said slowly. She can protect us all from various attacks by certain vampires. As long as they're mental attacks and not physical, she can protect a group of people from being controlled by the influence of others who could potentially do us harm. There are members of the Volturi who would love to control the power she wields. Rosalie flipped a lock of hair over her shoulder. Bella is thought of as unstoppable, as long as an attack isn't physical. And what if that attack is physical? Leah asked, tilting her head. Then if we don't practice training soon and we don't have Bella, we're screwed, Emmett said slowly. Seth took that moment to appear from the forest. He carefully zipped his cut-off shorts as he ran. There's a scent trail out there to follow, he called to us. It stops suddenly, but it's there for a little while. I recognize one scent, but the other isn't anyone I've known. I'm on it, Emmett growled, jetting toward the woods. I'm with you, Garrett said, charging after him. Ended.